Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
The jump fluctuations of Chen Ming's Zerg fleet made the mechanical race react immediately. They spread out from the position where the Zerg fleet jumped, and while avoiding crossfire and accidentally injuring friendly forces, they poured out all their firepower at the moment when the Zerg fleet jumped. The Zerg fleet that jumped over this time was still Chen Ming's favorite pure main fleet. Hundreds of Zerg battleships jumped to the center of the mechanical fleet, and they chose to directly withstand the concentrated fire attack of the entire mechanical fleet. The Zerg fleet was almost instantly submerged in the energy and explosion of the flames. No matter who saw this scene, they would sweat for the fleet in the flames. The general main fleet would definitely not be able to withstand the fierce bombardment of this fierce firepower, especially when the jump ended and all the fleet stayed in place like targets. But Chen Ming's Zerg fleet is not an ordinary fleet. The Queen of Zerg had already relied on the psychic shield that Chen Ming had thoroughly mastered some time ago, and installed biomass psychic shield generators on all Zerg warships. Based on its own psychic effect, it builds a psychic shield unique to the Zerg. This shield generator that relies on psychic fluctuations has a unique effect. When forming a shield, the characteristics of the interactive psychic energy will also be reflected on the shield. The effect that the psychic characteristics of the Queen of the Worm bring to the shield is that it has extremely high strength, adaptability, and evolution. It can quickly adjust the shield frequency when facing different types of attacks to defend against different types of attacks. Moreover, the psychic characteristics of the shield can be switched at any time. Just change the psychic fluctuations that constitute the shield. The Queen of the Worm can also fully express Chen Ming's psychic properties on the shield through the connection with Chen Ming's consciousness. The effect that Chen Ming's psychic properties can show is super high repairability. When Chen Ming's psychic properties are expressed on the shield, the large amount of biological radiation that has been accumulated will be quickly emptied, and the shield that has begun to be unstable will also stabilize in a very short time. Alternating between two shields of different natures can improve the defense strength of the Zerg fleet to a higher level. When facing the concentrated fire of a fleet of the same level and with fewer ships of the same level, such a shield is like a high wall that can never be broken in front of the enemy. The firepower of the total of 22 main battleships and more lower-level warships of the mechanical clan is not even enough to defeat the shield of any Zerg battleship. On the contrary, after the first wave of concentrated fire, the Zerg fleet counterattacked. The main battleship of the Zerg is the Hercules class that Chen Ming fed a mechanical clan mothership to the Queen of the Zerg at the earliest time. There are two models. Type A is responsible for combat, and Type B is responsible for cargo transportation. The main weapon of the Zerg battleship was also the mechanical clan spine cannon, with Zerg characteristics stolen from the mechanical clan mothership at the beginning. Such simple stealing of mechanical clan weapons as one's own weapons will certainly not last long. As the Hercules class was constantly upgraded by the Queen, Chen Ming also helped the Queen develop the Zerg's own main weapon Nessus class acid arc generator. This name is somewhat unlucky for the Hercules class, but the effect is extremely suitable. Bright green arcs penetrated from the smoke of the mechanical race's concentrated fire, piercing the shields and armor of all the surrounding mechanical race fleets. The arc with unique acid properties can directly hit the hull, causing extremely terrible damage to the hull. Cruisers and all smaller ships, as long as they are touched by a little bit of acid arc, the entire ship will instantly melt into a mixture of molten iron and acid. When the main battleship is hit by the acid arc, it can only survive for a while longer in these firepower. That's all. The design concept of the mechanical race ship is similar to that of the Sindar Company, both of which are the idea of mass production. Although the Zerg fleet is also designed for mass production, the nature of the Zerg devouring everything makes the resources at hand far beyond anyone's imagination. This ability to convert everything into energy makes Chen Ming's Zerg fleet more powerful than other mass-produced warships, even if it is mass-produced. In terms of single-ship combat power, it is enough to completely suppress the mechanical race. When the fleet is clustered and there is no decisive gap in the command ability between the two sides, the gap in ship combat power will be further magnified. Even this time, when Chen Ming asked the queen to take action, he didn't command at all and purely let the Zerg fleet play by itself. It is equivalent to relying only on the strength of the Zerg's own fleet to launch a surprise attack on the mechanical fleet. In this way, the Zerg fleet also won a great victory. The mechanical fleet can crush the military power of the marginal star field, and Chen Ming's fleet can certainly crush the military power of the mechanical race. It can be seen with the naked eye that the new superbody that is fighting with Chen Ming has become anxious. Its target is no longer just Chen Ming, but also those Zerg fleets. Although the Zerg fleet can crush the mechanical fleet, the superbody can also crush Chen Ming's Zerg fleet. As long as the new superbody is given some time, he can destroy all the 200 Zerg battleships. The strength of the fleet cluster is still not enough when facing the real top combat power. Chen Ming will definitely not give it such an opportunity. Although he still regarded the Colossus as his target, he knew that he could only achieve this goal by continuing to fight with the superbody of the mechanical race. What he wanted was to replace the Colossus of the mechanical race, not to kill the superbody. Whether he went to replace it personally or exchanged it with the Zerg fleet, as long as he could replace it, it would definitely not be a loss. He was not afraid of the superbody being destroyed, and he did not care about the loss of these 200 Zerg battleships. But the mechanical race must lack their Colossus. The Colossus is equivalent to a level 5 psychic in terms of destructive power, and it is also a level 5 psychic that can be reproducible. Its cost is definitely not low. It is impossible for the mechanical race to build ships by hand like him or directly pile up biomass like the Zerg. They need production lines, they need a lot of engineering equipment, and they also need a lot of time. So Chen Ming chose to exchange battle damage. When the new superbody obviously wanted to leave the battle, Chen Ming bit it back this time, constantly forcing it, not giving it the opportunity to turn back to support the mechanical fleet. If it only takes 1 minute to delay, the entire mechanical fleet will be completely wiped out, and then there will be the mechanical giant. This is a bit difficult. Whether it is Chen Ming's own superbody or the new superbody of the mechanical family, the attack methods they have are still the same old ones: space cutting and air mine placement. When fighting, you can only see two shadows running around in an area, and the edges are all traces of space cutting and pink aftermath of air mine explosions. There is no valuable information that can be seen clearly. And in this process, the new superbody used these two basic powers to rely on its own superior performance and some additional power that Chen Ming could not understand to crush his superbody in battle. If it weren't for his psychic power that was always supporting it, the superbody would have been destroyed and split into two pieces. Even the most basic submachine might be destroyed. But Chen Ming's superbody had difficulty hitting the new superbody of the mechanical family when using these two abilities. It was as if all his thoughts and control over the superbody were predicted and almost no successful hits were made. It's not that he had not participated in ship battles before, but this was the first time he had been suppressed by a single ship. His thoughts were completely predicted, and his operations were restricted step by step. It was as disgusting as hitting a fly, and he couldn't use his strength. And the fly would bite with deadly viruses from time to time, causing serious damage to the superbody. Chen Ming couldn't understand what caused the situation. However, he still chose to force himself to hold back the nausea and do what he should do. He believed that his Zerg fleet would be able to destroy the Colossus after destroying the mechanoid fleet. The new superbody seemed to be unable to wait any longer. It suddenly changed its way of fighting and chose to self-destruct in the process of trying to distance itself from Chen Ming's superbody. The core and the hull were shattered, and two split facets were formed in the next moment. The left facet continued to block Chen Ming. The right facet changed direction and rushed towards the position of Chen Ming's Zerg fleet. The effect of the time flow core was not affected at all after the split. The facet rushed into the Zerg fleet and used the space force recklessly, instantly destroying the Zerg fleet that was destroying the mechanical fleet. The Zerg fleet that was originally crushing the mechanical fleet was crushed by the superbody in an instant. But this is not the end. The right facet of the new superbody did not stop after destroying the Zerg fleet, but continued to rush into the mechanical fleet that was defeated by the Zerg fleet and attacked its own ships. Judging from its trajectory, its final target must be the Colossus. The mechanical race judged that they could not win, so there was only one way to choose. Of course, Chen Ming could not watch the facet do this. God knows whether the mechanical race will have any special means to destroy the Colossus, which they designed themselves, causing it to be destroyed to an extremely serious extent and extremely difficult to repair. Or whether there will be any key and difficult to replicate structures inside that were taken away by the facet, such as some special psychic materials or materials that are relatively rare in the entire universe, making repair impossible. If the structure self-destructs, Chen Ming can still rely on the original things in the structure to repair it, but it will be troublesome if the things are taken away. Chen Ming made a decision immediately. Zhu Ding risked the destruction of his superbody and changed his usual course of action, forcing himself to move in the direction of the Colossus. This time, the left facet that was left to block him seemed to react a beat slower and failed to keep up with his movements, allowing Chen Ming to pass the facet's protection and rush directly to the Colossus. He did not slow down at all this time, and the superbody smashed through the Colossus hull without any normal combat power and embedded in it. The two faces of the new superbody immediately realized the situation and stopped approaching the Colossus. They immediately destroyed the remaining mechanical fleet in a whirlwind and fled in the direction outside the Empire at the fastest speed. This speed is only estimated by the naked eye. Chen Ming knew that even if his superbody was not embedded in the interior of the Colossus, he would never be able to catch up with it even if the output power was fully overloaded to the limit. Chen Ming stared at the place where the new superbody disappeared for a while and could only sigh with regret. Although this battle can be said to be his suppression of the mechanical race. But he can't be happy. The Zerg fleet can really do very little. Although Chen Ming's suppression of the mechanical race in terms of basic combat power is still very obvious. The Zerg under his psychic power enhancement is different from the Zerg originally created by the Shining Civilization to fight the mechanical race. They are stronger than the mechanical race. However, the superbody can also suppress Chen Ming's Zerg and can slaughter Chen Ming's Zerg fleet at will. The top combat power suppresses the ordinary combat power too seriously. When facing the top combat power of the mechanical race, the same equal means must be used to restrict it. But the superbody of the mechanical race can be repeatedly manufactured. Even if the cost is high, the number of superbodies higher than the Colossus will definitely not be less. But there is only one Chen Ming. Not all the top psychics of the Empire can restrict the superbody of the mechanical race, or even destroy the superbody. This is the biggest problem. No matter how many Zerg fleets he has, no matter how powerful the mechanical fleet is, they are just cannon fodder when facing the top individual forces. The victory of the war cannot be pinned on the weakness of the enemy. Even if the military force of the mechanical race this time only has one Colossus and a total of 22 main battleships besides the superbody, the Empire can take out other things besides the Colossus superbody. But the mechanical race is not limited to this. The star field they occupy is larger than that of the mechanical race, and there are also multiple mechanical race clusters. How could the fleet that is united be so small? This first wave of attack is still just a test of the mechanical race. The test of the superbody at the beginning is to test the emergency defense capability of the Empire against high-end combat power. The first wave of attack, while testing the high-end combat power of the Empire again, is also testing the Empire's response capability to invasion and the combat capability of the border defense fleet. Chen Ming accepted both tests of high-end combat power. But the problem of the lack of combat power of the Empire editor has obviously been completely exposed to the mechanical race. The real problem is that there will be problems later. Chen Ming suddenly had a way to resist the invasion of the mechanical race. That is to use the Scarlet Dimension. The invasion of Scarlet also has an effect on the mechanical race, especially the Scarlet power that belongs to him. And his control over the Scarlet power is no less than any Scarlet creature. And he can even represent the Scarlet in the territory of the Empire. He can try to use the Scarlet to isolate the Empire within the Scarlet. But this requires an extremely huge force. There must be Scarlet rifts throughout the Empire, and it must be possible to ensure that the Scarlet in the Scarlet rifts is suppressed by the Scarlet mechanical heart. It is extremely difficult to do this. Chen Ming can now suppress the scarlet rifts of several galaxies at the same time, but more will require more powerful power. Let's think about it again. Although Chen Ming has said several times that the Empire needs to deal with the war of the mechanical race itself, but it is really difficult for him not to help think about how to deal with this matter. He really can't see any hope, but he can't just watch the Empire destroyed. Chen Ming shook his head. Put the idea aside for the time being. Now, let's deal with this colossus. The troubles in the Frontier Star territory were quickly resolved, but the damage that had been done would not be restored. In the superbody, he took a look at the miserable situation in the galaxy. Chen Ming narrowed his eyes, activated his psychic powers, and disappeared into the galaxy. Soon, Chen Ming returned to the capital of the empire. Found the psionic minister who seemed to have just had an argument with someone in the government building in the capital. If you think about it, you will know that the content of the quarrel must be related to the mechanical tribe. Chen Ming didn't care who the minister of psychic energy was arguing with. Anyway, in the end, as long as he didn't want to die, there would be a result. After being taken to a reception room by the psychic minister, Chen Ming was the first to speak. The entire fleet has been dealt with. I will leave the scattered mechanical races to the Zerg fleet to deal with. I have already obtained their colossi, and they will be dragged directly to me when the time comes. I have seen the design blueprint of the Colossus construction factory before, so don't waste your time building it yourself. I will mount it directly to my giant shipyard when the time comes. A lot of people have to be sent to the star field behind to deal with it. The entire star field may have hundreds of thousands of people living on the planet where my men went. Those corpses can't just pile up there. Someone has to collect them. Actually, there are some people who are more lucky. They were on the spaceship when the machine tribe invaded. If they ran fast, they could still survive, but... As he spoke, the minister shook his head. The number of people who could survive this way was definitely not as many as the people who survived in the shelter. I understand. Someone will handle it when the time comes. Chen Ming nodded slightly. Well, so how is the situation in the Empire? Every Edge Star field has been asked to conduct self-examination. Currently, only this mechanical invasion force has been discovered. Everything else is normal. Then this is just another test. Yes, but it will definitely not be the case next time. The Empire has begun to enter a state of complete combat readiness, preparing for all-out war. Don't just talk about it. Have you discussed any way to deal with the machine race? How to deal with just that superbody? The Minister of Psychic Energy did not respond directly, but said, I just talked with your president, and he said that Scarlet seems to be no longer a problem now. Yes, I can suppress Scarlet now. The Minister of Psychics recalled the way Chen Ming was wrapped in Scarlet power before and drove around in his superbody like a normal person. Even his superbody was stained with blood. He didn't think there was anything wrong with what Chen Ming said. He nodded and continued what he just said. The president can help us send the psychers near the invading superbody. Then, the superbody data model you left before has been published in the library, and all kinds of data are clearly written. Most of the psychers in the Empire have statistics. Various physical qualities include nerve reaction speed, body muscle strength, and specific calculations of the specific intensity of psionic effects when using psionic powers. By comparison, we can know how many people in the Empire can withstand the superbody and pose a threat to the superbody. Wait a moment. Chen Ming suddenly interrupted the minister and took out the terminal to call up the superbody's data. What's wrong? Chen Ming didn't reply, but silently adjusted the specific values of the data on the terminal in front of him. Soon, Chen Ming reflected the difference between the trial version of the superbody and the official version of the superbody in the terminal data and handed the terminal to the minister. Let's see how many people can still see the superbody. The minister immediately lowered his head to study the official version of the superbody data. His expression quickly changed and he asked, This is... I said before that the supership I controlled was just a trial model, right? Yes. If we look at this data, the Empire can deal with no more than 5 superphysical psychers. If you include taking various medicines to temporarily strengthen the psychic power, it may be about 10, which is also considered I can handle it. I hope so. The data on paper will always be just data on paper. Whether or not one can transcend the body depends only on the psycher's own strength. There may be some psychers on the minister's list who can't defeat metabodies, but there may also be people not on the list who have the right tools to target metabodies. Chen Ming didn't say any more about the issue of superbodies. What about the back? When the mechanical tribe comes, they won't just have superbodies. The Minister of Psychics responded in a prepared manner. Everything else is pretty good. As for the fleet, we can only have a few powerful legions on standby in various places. The entire Empire's army needs better equipment. The Empire has begun to shift its direct industrial planet's productivity to the military. As long as the technology is in place, anything can be said. Chen Ming could hear the meaning of the minister's words and brought Nami over. He now represents all the technology of shining civilization. You know what this is. When the time comes, I will build you a device that can directly read the data of the nanorobot and extract all the data in its brain. Nano, who was controlled by Chen Ming, did not lose his self-awareness, so when he heard this, he immediately said, "I can release the data myself. Just give me a storage terminal." Chen Ming stretched out his hand and gestured in the direction of the minister. "Then I'll leave it to you. As long as all shining civilization technologies can be developed, the entire empire will soon usher in a wave of major technological updates." But is there enough time? Have no idea. Faced with Chen Ming's question, the minister could not give a definite answer. It depends on when the next wave of machine invasion will be. If we can give it a month, at least the troops on the front line can be replaced with the latest weapons and equipment. There's really no guarantee of anything else. That's it. Give me a copy of the technical finished product when it comes out, and I'll use it to optimize it. Then you can draw a blueprint directly based on the finished product and use what I've optimized. Okay, thank you very much. Chen Ming said no more and stood up to leave. But before he walked out of the reception room, he suddenly turned around and asked, "How to win this war?" Some time ago, Chen Ming obtained a star map of the universe. The star field occupied by countless mechanical races brought uncontrollable shock and fear to everyone. We can't say we can win now. The Empire doesn't even have the ability to go out. The Empire must at least survive the formal attack by the mechanical tribe. Only if it survives can it be worthy of discussing the subsequent issues. Chen Ming was not satisfied with the result. But this is reality. Although many methods and strategies have been talked about against the mechanical tribe, it seems that with the technology of shining civilization, one can definitely defeat the mechanical tribe. But in fact, the Empire now has no qualifications to challenge the mechanical race that has been in the universe for tens of thousands of years. It must try its best to even survive. Only Chen Ming could ignore the power of the mechanical clan and essentially crush the mechanical clan. After leaving the imperial capital, Chen Ming thought about the superbody for a long time. At the end of the day, there are only 3 troubles the Empire faces: the invasion of the machine race, the hidden queen of the remnants, and the brainwashed psychers who are still not completely dead. They are all stumbling blocks on the way forward for the Empire. If the Empire fell, it would be completely helpless, or even fall to death, which would do him absolutely no good. But when it comes to the war between the mechanical tribes, he can't help much. The only top combat power he has is himself, plus at most a superbody that he controls remotely. There is absolutely no way to effectively restrict the machine race. It can only depend on the Empire itself. As for the Queen of the Survivors, she has to wait until they run out on their own. Or maybe Chen Ming's researchers have made breakthrough progress in the research on that special stargate. This is not something he can speed up just by worrying about it. So Chen Ming thought for a while and simply considered the idea that popped into his head before. It is to use Scarlet to limit the invasion of the mechanical clan in disguise. Create a Scarlet Cradle for the Empire. But the trouble of brainwashing the psyker would stop him from thinking just then. If you are not completely dead, you never know when the human finger will pop up again. Whether it is to have complete peace of mind in the future, or to really use this plan that Chen Ming named Scarlet Cradle Project, it is best to find a way to find a brainwashing psyker in Scarlet and kill him. But not before that. Chen Ming found the insect queen first. Let the insect queen follow the traces left by the Zerg fleets of the previous generations of insect queens in the galaxy and trace them in reverse. Chen Ming simply left the rest of the matter to the insect queen to deal with, and he didn't pay too much attention. He just spent a few days dragging all the corpses of more than 100 Leviathan he killed to the orbit of the planet Gaia. Evenly spread out, and next to each Leviathan corpse, different types of space stations for studying Leviathan were built, like a star ring trophy, dotted with the moonless planet Gaia. Although the war has begun, what needs to be done must be done. Even if the war starts, it won't affect him so quickly. After all, he was alone outside the Empire, and no mechanical race knew the location of the wormhole. Time flies so quickly. Arrived more than 20 days later. Chen Ming has been trying to find brainwashing psychers in the Scarlet Dimension, but has never been successful. The chaotic concepts of space and time in the Scarlet Dimension make the search for brainwashed psychers more difficult than finding a needle in a haystack. But there is good news. The mechanical clan has not made any movement in the past period of time. Therefore, Chen Ming had enough time to help test and optimize the technologies that would soon yield results and could be applied to future wars with the machine race. These technologies are already being fielded on the front lines. Judging from Chen Ming's perspective in various parts of the Empire, as well as the news coming back from the Afterglow cores he controlled that still control some industries in the Empire has indeed shifted the production of many consumer goods to the production of military products. At least in the border star regions, regular rationing of materials has begun to be implemented, and this situation is already spreading to the star regions within the Empire. It can be said that a lot of excess productivity is indeed used where it should be used. The Empire has indeed put its war preparations on the table. At the same time, the propaganda machinery of all aspects of the Empire was also activated. Fully announce what the Machine Tribe did during their invasion 20 days ago. Of course, it also includes the tragic massacres on planets caused by Colossus-level weapons. Chen Ming even saw the footage of the mechanical race's biological generator on the news that he had recorded before. This had done a good job of steering public opinion, and the entire Empire was now plunged into grief and anger. There is almost no objection to the fact that the Empire is heading towards war. As the saying goes, a desperate army will win, but I don't know if this principle is still useful in the space age. The Empire has the time to expand its armaments through the Zerg's shining civilization technology and Chen Ming's optimized psychic energy. But this situation also makes many people extremely worried. Everyone knows that this is the last calm before the storm. Preparation is preparation. No one knows when the mechanical race will launch a second attack and start a real war. So Chen Ming continues to do what he should do day after day. Until the 27th day after the last fleet exploration of the mechanical race. Chen Ming is still running back and forth between the giant dock and the neighboring Gaia planet as usual. Now the size of the giant dock has expanded a circle compared to before, and the expanded areas are where the Colossus captured by Chen Ming is placed. Many of the more than a dozen project teams that were originally responsible for the Colossus research in the Empire have come to Chen Ming's side. Strive to create the Colossus-class weapons that belong to the Empire as soon as possible. But no one expected it to be used so soon. Chen Ming was talking with the director of the Ship Research Institute of the Core in the observation room, next to the test field about the design direction of the Empire's Colossus structure when he suddenly received a call from Tianjin. Chen Ming first went to the giant dock on the Gaia planet. Tianjin called it this time. There must be something important. Chen Ming greeted the director and went outside to answer the phone. Director, there are signs of Scarlet invasion on an experimental planet I placed outside the Empire. All the Gaia plants over there died, and there was no time to suppress the Scarlet. Chen Ming's brows frowned immediately. He knew that Tianjin was doing some extreme experiments on planets outside the Empire, trying to test the most efficient conversion efficiency of Gaia seeders to convert planets. By the way, test whether some planets with special climates can be converted stably. Due to the long distance and the certain danger of the experiment, only means of remote control of equipment were prepared. Unexpectedly, the experiment did not go wrong, but the planet of the experiment had problems. Chen Ming knew without even thinking that it must have been done by the brainwashed psychic. Because no one in the Empire or Scarlet could influence Scarlet except him and Chen Ming himself. Chen Ming had been looking for him in Scarlet, and he might have noticed something. And what was he thinking when he took the initiative to expose his position? No one knew. So Chen Ming had to go and take a look. After Chen Ming and Tianzhan asked about the situation, they turned around and explained the situation to the ship director. The ship director shouldn't have said anything about Chen Ming's decision, but he couldn't help but say, "Your main battleship will be shipped in 1 day. Didn't you say that this ship is very important to you? Wait 1 more day." Chen Ming really wanted to wait. But Tianzhan also said on the phone that Scarlet was spreading wildly. The brainwashed psychic must be doing something big, and it must be dealt with as soon as possible. And if he handles it quickly, he might have finished the matter before the ship leaves the factory. If it really doesn't work, Chen Ming took out an empty shell of the Alpha Core. This is the second Alpha class afterglow that Chen Ming has seen, the core of G3. Chen Ming has been studying the matter of reviving the afterglow core. After all, there are many Alpha class cores killed by the mechanical race in the afterglow. If he can find a way to revive those grown afterglow cores, it will also be beneficial to Chen Ming. So when he was researching, he started with the first dead afterglow core G3 he encountered. The death of the G3 core was very special. After it was infected by the Scarlet, only the consciousness died. The internal operating logic and data did not have any problems, and some basic functions were still there. For example, controlling the spacecraft. Chen Ming handed G3 to the director and let the director handle the rest. He had to do what he had to do. Chen Ming quickly drove his superbody to the galaxy and planet that Tianxian mentioned. Chen Ming quickly drove his superbody to the galaxy and planet that Tianxian mentioned. The planet that was originally quite vibrant is now looking like another vibrant one. Scarlet has spread all over the planet. From outside the planet, you can't find any land that is not infected by Scarlet. The equipment that Tianzhong had previously placed on the planet had long been submerged in this endless Scarlet. Chen Ming drove his superbody around the planet quickly and found the source of the Scarlet infection. It was a Scarlet fissure that seemed to be born on the surface of the planet. The superbody approached the rift and hovered over the rift. Chen Ming looked towards the surface and saw that the brainwashed psyker was already waiting for him. The brainwashed psyker who left his body the last time and completely transformed into a conscious state has now completely lost his humanoid appearance. When he first left the body, he only had a strange brain, but now all the muscle tissue in his body has been transformed into brain tissue. The body shape has also changed from the original approximate appearance of a normal human being to become extremely fat and bloated. It looks like an extremely disgusting brain-dead monster. And not only did he become a monster, he was even in a worse state than before. His mental strength and the psychic energy fluctuations around him are obviously not as good as before. The only thing that has become stronger is the scarlet power that seems to make his current body drip with blood. Chen Ming casually guessed that the brainwashed psyker had been staying in the Scarlet for a long time, and the chaotic time in the Scarlet dimension made what he experienced far longer than Chen Ming. The brainwashed psyker might have been in there for who knows how long. It's really not easy to still manage to let Chen Ming see that he is a brainwashing psyker. After a few glances, Chen Ming put a set of biological armor on his body, jumped out of the super body's cabin, and fell freely towards the position of the brainwashed psyker. It hit the brainwashed psyker in front of him with a strong impact, probably somewhere in front of him. The brainwashed psyker did not make any extra moves. He just blocked Chen Ming's further attack by blocking the scarlet power in front of him. He did not directly launch a counterattack because of what Chen Ming did. Instead, he asked Chen Ming after he landed, "Let's talk? What do you want to do?" Although Chen Ming was asking questions, there was no hesitation in the movements of his hands. He suddenly raised a punch with phase power and tore apart the scarlet power of the brainwashing psyker in front of him, directly hitting his brain full of brains. The consciousness of the brainwashed psyker suddenly disappeared when Chen Ming's punch was about to hit, and instantly appeared dozens of meters away. He shouted to Chen Ming, "It's nothing. I just want to have a chat with you." Seeing that Chen Ming acted simply but seemed to want to hear what he had to say, the brainwashed psyker said again, "Don't believe it. You can see that I am really here anyway. And your few punches were enough to seal off the entire planet, right? I guess your heart has already blocked the gap, so there's no need to wait this long, right?" "Bad." Chen Ming replied decisively, rose up again, left a deep footprint on the spot, and appeared next to the brainwashed psyker again. And you took the initiative to bring me here. It's really hard for me not to believe that you have other ideas. Faced with Chen Ming's attack, the brainwashing psyker once again dodged without haste and said, "Of course I have other ideas, but talking to you is also part of it. Since you replied, I will assume that you are willing to take the risk to chat with me. I'm not interested in that." Chen Ming might have had plans to talk before, but now he only had one idea left about brainwashing psychers. Chen Ming punched forward again, but the brainwashed psyker dodged it again. Seeing that several tentative moves were avoided, Chen Ming simply slightly distanced himself from the brainwashed psyker and raised his left arm. Suddenly, a projection of phase power appeared in the air, forming a giant blue hand, slamming down towards the ground. Space cracks appeared in the space that the hand of phase crossed, and you could feel the terrifying power of this hand even just by looking at it. The brain flowers on the brainwashed psyker's body were trembling, and a strong spiritual power emanated from his body, clashing with Chen Ming's phase giant hand. In the blood mist caused by the explosion of psychic power and the scarlet material on the ground, the brainwashed psyker once again asked Chen Ming, "Weren't you curious before about why I did these things? Rather than being curious about this matter, it would be better for you to die." As Chen Ming spoke, another giant blue hand rose up from the scarlet substance under the ground, trying to grab the brainwashed psyker into it. The brainwashed psyker's body suddenly exploded, and the shattered brain quickly escaped the control of Chen Ming's hand and was rebuilt into his original appearance more than 10 meters away. He said in a very calm tone, "I will die today. Why don't you sit down and have a chat? Do you look like you can sit up? Besides, rather than watching you die, I think it's better to kill you myself. Since you said you were going to die, why not just let me kill you now?" I saw that Chen Ming always looked like he was in a state of indifference. The brainwashed psyker had no choice but to simply say what he wanted to say. "The birth of my psychic power comes from my life being controlled by my family members who believe in Zhuijing and my desire to control everything." Simple sentence, no emotional fluctuations. The brainwashing psychic is like telling a stranger's story. But Chen Ming has heard Qianyan's past, and he knows that Qianyan's life is very painful. And if the brainwashing psychic is really in a family environment with a strong Zhuijing atmosphere, as he said, everything he encounters will only be more miserable than Qianyan. But Chen Ming doesn't want to comment on this. Anyway, for him, the dead Zhuijing is the good Zhuijing. Even if he knows that Qianyan was actually a good person at the beginning, after he was controlled by the brainwashing psychic, death is his best destination. Although he said he didn't want to talk to the brainwashing psychic, Chen Ming was still interested in interrupting if the brainwashing psychic took the initiative to bring it up. "So, after you awakened your psychic power, you took control of the left path." But in the same way, while interrupting, Chen Ming's hand movements did not lag at all. The phase power kept tearing the scarlet used by the brainwashed psychic to protect himself, and kept trying to kill the brainwashed psychic. The brainwashed psychic did not dare to have a direct conflict with Chen Ming at all, but kept using the scarlet power he mastered to keep a distance from Chen Ming. He said what he wanted to say, by the way. "I not only want to control the left path, I also want to control everything, but unfortunately I can't. Life will always seek a way out on its own and cannot be completely controlled. My psychic power will never be able to control everyone in the entire empire in this life, so I will contact the scarlet power." Then, my will was distorted by the scarlet. Chen Ming nodded and said, "That's good. Otherwise you will definitely lead humanity to a dead end." "Maybe. Anyway, this will not happen. I know my will is affected, but I can only accept this influence. Any living being spirits, whether they are controlled by me or not, will constantly bring me extremely painful pressure from both my mental and physical aspects. The creatures controlled by me will put an extra burden on my mind, and the creatures not controlled by me will make me feel extremely uneasy. I can't choose it all. I only feel pain when I live. So my thoughts have changed. As long as I can kill everyone, I don't have to think about this matter." What a twisted theory. Chen Ming's slowed down movements resumed again, and he directly used a more powerful force to target the brainwashed psychic. "No wonder you abandoned the people controlled by him so easily before. You don't care at all." "Yes, I want to destroy the world and exterminate all living things in the world." Chen Ming suddenly realized something, paused his hand, and said, "Scarlet should be different from what you thought before. It's different. You should now understand what kind of existence Scarlet is better than me. They are not dead things, they are just another form of life. But I don't want life. I want a universe without vitality, not a universe with life. I really can't understand this kind of thing." Chen Ming's tone of voice was already full of contempt. "If someone hurts you, why don't you kill the person who hurts you? Why do you want to affect innocent people? You feel pain because other people live around you, so you might as well kill yourself if you run away and live. What nonsense." The brainwashed psychic immediately retorted, "Are you saying that those who are watching are innocent? Do you know that Zhujiang was originally raised by the empire itself? How can they be innocent?" Chen Ming certainly knew that Zhujiang was raised by some people in the empire, and many people actually knew about this. The practice of raising enemies to protect oneself has a history of thousands of years. So when the brainwashed psychic awakened his psychic power to control everything, no one came to deal with the brainwashed psychic, which also provided him with considerable convenience in taking root in the empire later. The brainwashed psychic and Xinyan were actually both victims of Zhujiang. One chose to go along with the light and even intensified it, and the other chose to rely on his own abilities to try to fight back. The result can only be said to be bad. But what Chen Ming wanted to say was what he had just said. He would trouble and retaliate against anyone who harmed him, even if there were extra accidental injuries during the revenge. Even if the brainwashed psychic really only retaliated against some of the masterminds of Zhujiang, as long as he could survive, someone in the empire would definitely stand behind him. Whether he was used or not, it depends on his ability, just like what Chen Ming experienced. But now this kind of indiscriminate large-scale terrorist attack-like revenge has no legitimacy at all. Can you only hear the first half of what I said? If you don't understand human language, you should also be on the road. It's time to go on the road. You just said that you know I took the initiative to expose myself to lead you here, so you should be mentally prepared, right? Of course. Chen Ming once again mercilessly swung his iron fist in the direction of the brainwashed psychic. This time, he did not dodge, but directly met him, and the spiritual power in his body was completely released and rushed towards Chen Ming. "Well, before I die, I actually still want to achieve my goal." With that said, the mental power of the brainwashed psyker completely enveloped Chen Ming and dragged him into the consciousness space. Chen Ming once again stood at the top of the Hulk Peak. From a distance, he saw the brain that seemed to be filled with divinity in the consciousness space of the brainwashed psyker. The brain in the consciousness space of the brainwashed psyker has recovered a lot compared to before, but the brain above is not a human brain, but an animal brain. Chen Ming looked at this scene and thought for a while, then suddenly pointed at the island at his feet. "I saw a little bit of metallic luster soil suddenly separated from the corner of the island and flew forward. The next moment, the mental power of the brainwashed psyker was suddenly forced to wrap around this small piece of soil, and Chen Ming was able to escape from the conscious space and forcibly disconnected from his consciousness. After leaving the conscious space, the brainwashed psyker asked somewhat unexpectedly, "Will you actually learn my abilities? I can learn everything that's useful. I'll put it to use now, right?" Of course, Chen Ming couldn't let the brainwashed psyker do what he wanted. If he wants to be dragged into the conscious space, he must find a way to escape quickly. "Oh, it doesn't matter." The brainwashed psyker laughed, but he didn't know which organ he used to laugh. But in short, at the moment when Chen Ming was dragged into Scarlet, the outside environment changed drastically. In those few seconds, his scarlet power broke through the blockade of Chen Ming's scarlet power and forced the introduction of Scarlet from the Scarlet dimension. This scarlet power did not spread further, but completely transformed the planet that was originally occupied by Scarlet into Scarlet territory. The normal cosmic environment has also been further affected. As soon as Chen Ming left the consciousness space, he discovered that although he was still in the normal universe, it was no different from staying in the Scarlet universe. The environment of this normal universe has been completely occupied, assimilated, and swallowed up. This is the final result if the reality of Scarlet infection is not suppressed. Scarlet will assimilate other dimensions into the Scarlet dimension. Chen Ming immediately understood some of the situation. For example, why the space and time in the Scarlet Dimension are messed up. After being swallowed by Scarlet in different dimensions, it would be strange to be confused. The brainwashed psyker seems to have a backup plan at this time. The fluctuations in the Scarlet Dimension behind him suddenly became chaotic, and a shadow emerged from behind him. It was a huge spherical creature, or maybe a machine. This time, Chen Ming's face showed some surprise. Is this thing not dead? And dead, just not completely dead. The center of the giant spherical object suddenly emitted a blazing beam of light, covering Chen Ming. That is the Scarlet Eye that was resurrected under the framework of the scavenger robot. That's the Scarlet Mechanical Eye. The last time Chen Ming entered the Scarlet, he was forced to leave the damaged scavenger robot in the Scarlet for various reasons. He tried to find it later, but he really couldn't find it. He originally thought that the scavenger had disappeared in the dimension due to the characteristics of the dimension, but he didn't expect that it was taken away by the brainwashed psychic. The scavenger left in the Scarlet Dimension has now been washed away by the Scarlet material, and Chen Ming's control effect has been washed away. If it weren't for those familiar mechanical structures, Chen Ming couldn't even tell that this was his scavenger. This thing is not a threat to me. You should know. Chen Ming's indifference after the accident was expected by the brainwashed psychic. He said, "Of course I know it is not a threat to you. Its value is more just to lock you. You must have lost control of this thing, but there is still a connection between it and you." Chen Ming could guess why the brainwashed psychic knew that there was no connection between him and the scavenger. When the brainwashed psychic was not stopped from fusing the remains of the scavenger robot and the Scarlet Eye, two similar-looking things, together, it was enough to prove that Chen Ming really had no control over it. But Chen Ming did not expect that the scavenger robot could actually locate his position in reverse. This should not be a problem of psychic power, but a problem of Scarlet power. Chen Ming's psychic power does not have psychic fluctuations when controlling anything, but the influence of Scarlet power on these things is obviously different. Chen Ming had opened a scavenger in the Scarlet Dimension before, and also used the Scarlet power to influence the scavenger to a certain extent, which of course would cause this Scarlet power to remain on it. Naturally, it would be tracked by the brainwashed psychic. This is a two-way situation. If Chen Ming could find a way to find something related to the brainwashed psychic, he could also use it to track it back. Unfortunately, he did not. When the brainwashed psychic left his body and transformed into a pure consciousness, the back of his body was shattered by the aftermath of psychic power when Chen Ming fought with the nanorobots of the survivors. Otherwise, Chen Ming would have taken the opportunity to chase him. So how could he have given the brainwashed psychic the opportunity to stand here and speak today? Chen Ming did not comment on the brainwashed psychic's words and asked, "Just lock me?" More than that, it has two functions. The brainwashed psychic stretched out two fingers full of brain patterns towards Chen Ming, which made Chen Ming feel sick. One is to lock you and use force to keep you on the planet, like this. As the voice fell, the surface of the brainwashed psychic's consciousness suddenly formed an extremely close connection with the surrounding Scarlet power. A large amount of Scarlet power swept towards Chen Ming. These Scarlet powers did not bring a sense of danger to Chen Ming, but when they completely filled Chen Ming's side. Chen Ming found that his Scarlet power was stuck to the spot by this Scarlet power. It is impossible to leave here unaffected in a short time. This is the effect achieved by utilizing the characteristics that all Scarlet powers come from the Scarlet Dimension. The brainwashed psychic assimilates his own power with the power of the Scarlet Dimension and actively involves this power with Chen Ming's power and actively sacrifices his own Scarlet power to Chen Ming. In essence, it is equivalent to sharing the Scarlet power with Chen Ming and using this shared power to restrict Chen Ming to the Scarlet Dimension. This is a more effective way to block Chen Ming's whereabouts than closing the rift between the normal universe and the Scarlet Dimension. Interesting. The brainwashed psychic in the distance was not surprised to see that Chen Ming did not dodge at all and was left there. He did not use offensive means, and the purpose of Chen Ming coming here was to kill him. Before he died, Chen Ming would never leave. In fact, my power level is the same as yours. The strength of your Scarlet power comes from your understanding of Scarlet, and the strength of my Scarlet power comes from my long time with Scarlet. You have mastered many more powerful powers besides Scarlet, so you are not as good as me in the development of Scarlet power. In Scarlet, as long as I am willing to pay the price, even you can't escape easily. After being blocked by the brainwashed psychic, Chen Ming really couldn't leave easily. Not only because of the restrictions of the Scarlet Dimension, but also because this method is almost a cost of life. The brainwashed psychic always actively offers his own power, rather than converting the power for his own use. Doing so can indeed control more power belonging to the Scarlet Dimension in a short period of time, while the mark belonging to him on the released power has not dissipated, causing trouble to the enemy. But once this method is used too much, the lost power will not come back by itself, and it will eventually endanger itself. At this time, Chen Ming can already see that the consciousness of the brainwashed psychic is becoming weaker. And the reason for this is just to force him to stay in place. No wonder the brainwashed psychic said he would die today. He was actively tearing himself apart, letting everything in his consciousness pave the way for this power. And what he just said was his last words. Even a madman like him would find it difficult to die alone and silently when facing death. He had to say something he wanted to say before he died. Then, find a way to pull someone to walk to the underworld together. But if it was just this, it would not be enough. It was not enough to let Chen Ming go with him. Chen Ming raised his left hand, and another blue giant hand pressed down in the air. The brainwashed psychic dodged again. Although he was obviously weaker, his reaction had not disappeared. While the brainwashed psychic was dodging, Chen Ming asked, "Then what? Don't tell me it's just this." "Of course there are others." The voice of the brainwashed psychic's consciousness became a little unclear, and it seemed that there was a risk of dissipating at any time. But Chen Ming knew that he would not die before he finished what he should do. As the brainwashed psychic finished speaking, the scarlet power of the scarlet mechanical eye floating behind him was mobilized, and the mechanical eye that originally exuded the absolute aura of the scarlet eye suddenly exuded a power similar to Chen Ming. Its violently fused half-mechanical and half-biological structure suddenly began to further merge deeply, as if Chen Ming's psychic power was really acting on it. And the consciousness of the brainwashed psychic was connected with the scarlet mechanical eye at this moment. Chen Ming immediately understood where the scarlet brain that had been the brainwashed psychic's mount in the scarlet dimension had gone. At the same time, he also understood what the brainwashed psychic was going to do. No wonder he wanted to use himself as bait to infect this planet in the normal universe with scarlet, and even let the scarlet dimension completely invade here and see that this place was completely assimilated. He wanted to make this place a part of the scarlet dimension, so that it would have some characteristics of the scarlet dimension. He wanted to create a situation where two similar scarlet creatures were fighting. Just like the last time, the fight between Chen Ming and the Scarlet Heart. Too weak. Chen Ming felt that the brainwashed psychic's idea was good, but the actual effect was not very good. Even so, you can't beat me in scarlet power. You are just a half-human, half-scarlet monster after all, and I am the one who truly controls the power of scarlet. Yes, the brainwashed psychic agreed with Chen Ming's words, but he said, "But I ask you a question. Do you dare to let your scarlet mechanical heart come over? Can you let your scarlet mechanical heart come over?" Chen Ming turned his head and looked around. This is now a space that was completely infected by scarlet and originally belonged to the normal universe. This space is still separated from other places in the normal universe because Chen Ming took the initiative to block this area when he first came here. After being completely infected by scarlet here, he maintained a fragile balance so that scarlet would not escape his control. If the scarlet mechanical heart in the scarlet dimension wants to come over, it will definitely squeeze this small area of scarlet-infected space that is not very wide around the planet. The scarlet will spread completely. No wonder. The current situation makes it impossible for the scarlet mechanical heart controlled by Chen Ming to directly confront the scarlet mechanical eye controlled by the brainwashed psychic. He can only mobilize the power of the heart to a certain extent and cannot use all of it completely. But the brainwashed psychic is different. When two scarlet creatures of the same type with a large difference in power fight, the scarlet dimension will give extra care to the weaker one. When Chen Ming fought with the Scarlet Heart before, The Scarlet Dimension gave Chen Ming extra power. And now, the scarlet power of the brainwashed psychic has become very obvious. The power that was just lost even has signs of returning. The voice of the brainwashed psychic has become much clearer. I know that these are not enough to defeat you. Your growth and your strength are truly unprecedented to me. So I have prepared something for you. The brainwashed psychic suddenly inserted the limbs of his consciousness, which were probably hands, into his torso and moved a few times and took out a ball of black matter. You know best what this thing is. Fragments of the nightmare of the plane. That's right. I have controlled many people before. Although I may not be able to remember all the memories of those controlled by me, I will always have some impressions. Only the memories of some people I pay special attention to. I will remember them completely. For example, I know all the memories of the leader of your negative matter research team. So I know how to use negative matter, and I also know what use this thing will have in the Scarlet Dimension. Chen Ming stared at the brainwashing psychic in silence, not knowing what to say. This ability of the brainwashing psychic is really powerful. Ignoring the effect of psychic power itself, even if it is just to extract the memory of others by controlling others, filtering out the memories related to other people and things, leaving only the memories related to knowledge, this effect. However, the brainwashing psychic used this power for this kind of thing. Chen Ming did not say what he wanted to say in his heart. He just said, "So you want to repeat what you did before?" The brainwashed psychic admitted Chen Ming's statement and said, "You escaped with the phase space last time. Can you escape again this time?" He directly stuffed the fragments of the body of the nightmare of the plane into the flesh and blood underground. He wanted to use negative matter to infect the entire planet, so that the properties of negative matter would transform the entire planet into a black hole. The black hole that appeared in the Scarlet Dimension would be transformed into a special red hole. No one knew where the red hole would lead to. Scarlet can't help me, and those survivors can't help me, but the mechanical race can. This is the first time I've discovered that the mechanical race actually has such a strong ability. You are the biggest threat to the mechanical race in the current empire. Just accompany me and leave only death in the world. Chen Ming suddenly questioned. The mechanical race only has extreme hatred for humans. You know it. Of course I know, but they will also clean up the Scarlet. The Scarlet will kill all creatures except the mechanical race, and the mechanical race will kill the Scarlet. That's enough. The brainwashed psychic knew that if he wanted to make what he expected happen, he only needed to get rid of Chen Ming, who was the biggest threat to the mechanical race. He used himself as bait, the scavengers left by Chen Ming as anchors, and the fragments of the body of the nightmare of the plane obtained from Chen Ming as keys to open the red hole. He would never let Chen Ming escape from the gravitational range of the red hole. He would realize his idea at the cost of his own life. The mechanical race has long evolved intelligence similar to Yuhui. They are also life, but they have a different life form from us humans. The nightmare of the plane that exists in the black hole dimension is also a special creature, and even the survivors have not died out to this day. You said that this will exterminate all life, but you don't even look at those lives. You have been crazy for a long time. What you said from beginning to end is just the fantasy of a madman. You are nothing. The brainwashed psychic did not respond. Perhaps he himself knew that what he did was to satisfy his crazy ideas. Or perhaps he has really indulged in madness. For Chen Ming, although he successfully blocked the brainwashed psychic last time, he couldn't do it this time. The crack that blocked the overflow of scarlet power has become Chen Ming's shackles to limit negative matter. He must make a choice. Either tear the space, open the crack leading to the phase space, and push the planet in again. At the same time, the Scarlet was released. He would need to spend a lot of energy to wipe out all the scattered Scarlet in different corners of the normal universe. Now it is not too far away from the Empire. If the Scarlet expands and he fails to deal with it in time, the impact will be extremely terrifying. Or he will choose to bear the gravity of the red hole until the brainwashed psychic dies. He will leave the space infected by the Scarlet again, tear the space from a wider dimension, and divide a larger independent area to deal with the infection of the Scarlet and the existence of the red hole. Chen Ming knew what he should choose. He chose to continue to strengthen the Scarlet Rift he controlled. Let the scarlet mechanical heart completely block the outside of the rift. He will personally face the brainwashed psychic's dying struggle. Gaia Space Station. Office of the Deputy Director. Lu Kang, who had climbed up from Chen Ming's deputy to the position of Deputy Director of the Extraordinary Research Institute, was doing his daily work when he suddenly heard a knock on the door. Please come in. The office door was pushed open, and Lu Kang stood up as soon as he saw the person coming. Minister Luo, why are you here? The psychic minister opened the door, took a look, and said, let me ask where your director is. Director? Lu Kang said as if he was not sure. The director often disappears for a few days. I'm used to it. If you can't get in touch, then it's even less likely that I can get in touch. The Minister of Psychics said slightly anxiously, I have an urgent matter with him. It was not convenient for him to tell others about the specific things. He wanted to contact Chen Ming personally. But he couldn't contact Chen Ming at all now, so he could only come in person and ask the person who was most likely to know where Chen Ming had gone. Lu Kang actually discovered that Chen Ming was missing when he went to work today, because he is the one who really runs the Institute of Management. Chen Ming does not have the tens of thousands of people in the Institute of Free Time Management. Even now, Chen Ming is not sure whether it is tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. Even with the assistance of Afterglow Core, it takes a lot of energy. Of course, this kind of matter is left to the deputy director. Lu Kang also enjoyed this, so he can see Chen Ming's schedule. Although Chen Ming may not necessarily do things according to the schedule, he can still roughly know what Chen Ming does every day. When Chen Ming loses contact intermittently, Lu Kang usually checks Chen Ming's schedule, roughly guesses what Chen Ming is doing, and adjusts the time for some work that requires Chen Ming to interact with others. Therefore, when he went to work today and found out that Chen Ming was missing, he went to check that the last place Chen Ming went to was the giant shipyard. He also specifically asked the ship director and learned that Chen Ming had left temporarily because of scarlet problems. He didn't pay too much attention to things involving psychic powers. But since the Minister of Imperial Psychics came to ask questions in person, he could not even tell these things. Chen Ming never said that his whereabouts should be kept absolutely confidential. The Minister of Psychics often came here, and Lu Kang had seen him more than once. So Lu Kang directly conveyed the news he learned today to the minister. Although this can't change the situation of still being unable to contact Chen Ming, you can at least ask Chen Ming where he went. Lu Kang and the minister ran to the giant shipyard, and then returned to the Gaia Space Station from the giant shipyard and ran to Tianjiang's office. After learning from Tianxiang the coordinates of the scarlet-infected planet and what Chen Ming said may be related to brainwashing psychers, the psychic minister left Chen Ming's territory alone. Contacted the president. Do me a favor. 10 minutes later, the minister and the president took a shuttle boat and used the president's space psychic energy to directly reach the target galaxy. Out of caution against Scarlet, the shuttle first stopped at the edge of the galaxy. Just by stopping here, the two of them had already discovered the planet in the galaxy that was in the habitable zone and was completely infected by scarlet and surrounded by scarlet rifts. The fissure growing here like a tumor is constantly overflowing with a scarlet power. However, this aura of power does not have the nature of the scarlet dimension that devours and assimilates everything. The president said based on his understanding of the scarlet dimension and scarlet power, this space has been transformed by the scarlet dimension, but Chen Ming's scarlet power is locked outside this area. He's definitely been here, and he's probably right behind here. The psychic minister was a little bit impatient, but he restrained his thoughts and said, but we can't go in. Did you feel it too? Well, there's something pretty troublesome behind this. Both the minister and the president felt the trembling of the spiritual nerves in their respective brains, suppressing the sense of danger brought about by the sense of danger that every psyker has more or less. This is not just a simple matter of trouble. The minister could clearly feel that there was something extremely terrifying in this crack sealed by Chen Ming's power. The president agreed with the minister's idea and said, it should be that thing that held Chen Ming down so that he couldn't escape, but he should be fine for the time being. Chen Ming's spiritual energy protected the rift, and the afterglows he controlled were still functioning normally. This basically proves that Chen Mingren is absolutely fine. Otherwise, the situation might not be ideal. Of course, Even if something happens that no one wants to see, Yu Wei still has the possibility of following Chen Ming's ideas. Therefore, both the president and the Minister of Psychics actually have another reason why they are sure that Chen Ming is not dead, but have not spoken out. That is the existence of the insect queen. The two of them had long suspected the relationship between Chen Ming and Enwupiing. The president heard some hints from Wu, and the psychic minister also heard the words, Chen Ming is Enwupiing, from the brainwashed psychic. Previously, the minister had regarded the words of the brainwashed psychic as pure farts, but hearing such words would still make people subconsciously pay attention. Moreover, the minister also went to ask about Enwupiing's situation today. Enwupiing, who could occasionally be seen in Fan Chao's biology laboratory, also disappeared after Chen Ming lost contact. So the minister probably had a guess in mind about this matter, but he won't tell the truth. As long as the Zerg are not in chaos, then Chen Ming is definitely not dead yet. But where is he? Is it within the sealed space of this infected normal universe, or somewhere in the Scarlet? The Minister of Psychic Powers suddenly said, the Tianxiang we just met, his psionic effect. No. The president immediately asked the minister to suppress his thoughts and said, Chen Ming specifically told me about this matter, saying that Tianxiang has not grown up enough to contact the Scarlet Dimension. He also said that he can handle Scarlet now, but in the future, to completely solve Scarlet, Tianxian must rely on him, and he must not be exposed to the risk of overexposure too early. Don't think of Tianxian as Chen Ming. He has only awakened his spiritual power for a few months, and his growth rate is not that fast. It seems that Chen Ming has indeed managed to hold it. At least the Scarlet here has not escaped his control. We can't let Tianxian come into direct contact with these things. The Minister of Psychic Energy still didn't want to give up. We need Chen Ming very much now. There are some things you can't just rely on him. Without him, would we have to wait to die? Go back. We should be very busy later. The president spoke in a somewhat tough tone at this time. After all, Tianxian was considered a member of the Psychic Association brought by Chen Ming. He knew that Tianxian was the hope of completely dealing with Scarlet and absolutely could not make any mistakes. Even if they had the ability to pass through this strange Scarlet Rift, it was impossible for them to solve the trouble in the rift and bring Chen Ming back. The minister stood beside the president, feeling that the power of space was about to take effect. He sighed and said, I will go to the centralized meeting of my high-level representatives later and ask all the border star regions to jointly issue an announcement to declare a full transition to wartime status. Evacuate the population of the border star system and gather it in the capital of the star field to prepare for emergency migration to the star field deep inside the territory. The preparations made before can be used now. Wu is still on that pirate space station, right? Let him evacuate too. The president shook his head and said, he has his own ideas, and I can't persuade him. And is this kind of cowardice before fighting really good? We can't expect to win from the beginning. Instead, we need to exchange space and time for intelligence to figure out the gap between the size of the machine clan and our combat effectiveness. With Chen Ming, we can be bolder, but without him, everything will have to become more conservative. If Chen Ming is here, it will indeed make the Empire much more convenient when doing things, and it will allow the Empire to relax its hands and feet when facing the machine race. But you can't expect just one person to do everything. There may be some bad voices at your meeting. The minister's expression darkened. He could already imagine that some people would say at the meeting that Chen Ming had deliberately lost contact at this time. I'll take care of it. I hope so, and I hope Chen Ming can come back soon. 1 month later, April 13th, 5605 AD. Gallo Star Region, Gallo, 2-star region. Pirate Space Station. The once lively Pirate Space Station is now deserted. After the war between the Empire's mechanical tribes officially began, and along with the wave of the Empire's withdrawal of the population from the border star fields, many people with unclear identities who had been stationed in the pirate space for a long time also took the opportunity to leave here. The interior of the space arm, which originally contained various industrial facilities, has been completely dismantled. Only a small amount of equipment that maintains the space station's life support system has not been dismantled, ensuring the survival of the few hundred people left on the space station. In the Space Arm 2 of the space station, the industrial facilities that once spread throughout the space arm now only remain some ruins of buildings that are difficult to dismantle. But the hardware store is still open here. The factory director was in the hardware store at this time and said to Wu and behind the counter, "Everyone in the company has basically withdrawn. We are the last batch. When will we leave?" Wu raised his head and asked, "Have you finished packing everything?" "I've finished packing. I've also packed up all the things Xiao Ming left behind. Nothing was left behind." "Then let's do it today." The factory director responded and asked again, "Is there still no news about him?" "No." The factory director's expression was full of regret, but he was also relieved. For a missing person, no news is the second best news. Why on earth would this happen? No one knows. The hardware store fell silent. Wu has also been paying attention to Chen Ming's affairs in the past month. He knew that Chen Ming was probably trapped in the rift on that planet. Many people sent equipment and arranged it nearby to investigate from the outside what was going on inside. But the results are not ideal. "Director." The silence in the hardware store was suddenly interrupted. Following the sound, the factory director turned to look at the door of the hardware store and saw a shiny bald head. "Why are you here? How is your wife?" "Fortunately, the injury is stable and he will not die." "That's good." The bald head glanced at the TV on the wall next to the hardware store that barely had a signal. At this time, the news was playing that the evacuation fleet of the Garo star field was attacked by the mechanical tribe. "It's a good thing that I saw the news that the Empire was going to evacuate people from the border and sold my house and bought a spaceship, otherwise I would have died outside by now." The factory director also saw the news and asked, "So what happened to you? Didn't you move to the next door? You are not in Garo. You don't know yet?" "The news hasn't come out yet, and I don't have any internal information to respond." "Oh, of course I came here because the next door is also uneasy." The bald man sighed and said, "I heard that the front line was still dragged on Garo, but who would have thought that there was a mechanical tribe? The fleet went straight through the defense line and ran to my side. Originally, our evacuation plan had just begun to be implemented, but who would have thought that the mechanical race would be right in front of us? I heard that there is a spaceship that is bigger than the colossus of the mechanical race. It can't be considered a spaceship, but a mobile space station. Our army can't defeat it at all. Several evacuation points have rioted, and everyone wants to get on the evacuation ship as soon as possible. If I didn't have my own spaceship, I might have died in the riot, but my wife was still injured by a few crazy people in the riot. It's good to be alive." The bald man nodded. "It's good to be alive." "Okay. Is it the same in other places?" "No." The factory manager denied. "Only our side was attacked the most severely. But I heard that other places have already started to evacuate people from the outer second ring star field, and the situation in those places should be worse." The factory manager explained, "That's because we have Baikuan to support us. He bought a lot of time for Jeloa to retreat. Other places have started to evacuate the outer second ring, and we haven't been penetrated by the mechanical tribe before. As a result, there is still a chance for the mechanical tribe to cross over. Giallo is finished. No one can save him. 10 all 4 legions can't do it." "No." The factory director responded decisively. "Their hometown was also invaded. I was surprised that Baikuan stayed in Jeloa. But now Jeloa has been directly penetrated by a fleet from nowhere. There is no point in protecting Jeloa. He will definitely withdraw soon. I just don't know how much they have lost. It will definitely not be too small. No matter how good the 14th Legion is, it is still a human being." The bald man has seen the harm caused by internal riots to people themselves. He knows very well that the harm and pain brought to people by the mechanical race will only be more severe. "After us. Go to Chen Ming." Wu suddenly spoke. "Soon the communication here will be completely cut off. We have to go to a safe enough place. Even if he has no news now, his place is definitely the safest place." The factory director said, "It's ready. Only the space station can't be moved. As for the space station, blow it up. Don't leave anything for the mechanical race." Gallo Star Territory. Gallo 2 Sector. Division of the 14th Legion. The captain's cabin of the capital ship located above the planet's orbit. Bai Quan's deputy is reporting to Bai Quan the estimated size of the machine fleet that has been calculated recently. Obviously, the number of mechanical races in the Gallo Star territory exceeds the average invasion level in other regions by more than 50%, and only the Gallo Star territory has welcomed 2 super ships at the same time. Although Bai Quan has experienced several large-scale battles with the Machine Clan, he still couldn't help but feel a little emotional when he heard the data reported by his deputy. These are 2 ships. Even from the direction of the headquarters, there is only 1 ship. BR? The deputy had never really seen a super body. When faced with Bai Quan's emotion, he couldn't help but ask curiously, how strong is a super body? Bai Quan did not blame his deputy for talking too much and asked, how many fleets did we have here at the beginning? 42 battleships, 4,200 cruisers, and several destroyer escorts. How many reinforcements are behind? 11 battleships, 800 cruisers, and several destroyers and escorts. Together, these can drag you down for 10 minutes. The deputy's expression suddenly stiffened. So, exaggerated. Is it an exaggeration? Let me tell you this. 10 of the top psychers in the entire empire, level 6 psychers, are selected to deal with a super body alone. Just like that, on the day the machines invaded, a level 6 psycher died. It wasn't carelessness, he was fully prepared, but he died. Although that super body has been retained, the machine race can still build another super body. We cannot train a level 6 psycher in a short time. There is one thing Bai Quan didn't say. That is, now that Chen Ming is away, the official version of the super body wreckage cannot be directly converted into combat effectiveness even if they take great risks to retrieve it. It can almost be said to be loss maximization. If Chen Ming was still here, the official version of the super body could be reactivated directly, and the other super body in Chen Ming's hands could be used to hunt other super bodies. This would snowball in the opposite direction, and the machine race might have been doomed. It's a pity. Bai Quan shook his head and continued. Also, the mechanical tribe has a total of 6 super bodies, and 1/3 of them have come to us. If many people didn't think that the mechanical tribe might increase their investment in this place, we would be here today. The losses so far are not limited to those currently counted. The only super body we have encountered so far has been destroyed. The other super bodies were only temporarily intercepted, causing some damage but unable to completely solve it. The speed of the super body means that it is absolutely impossible to catch up with it using ordinary means. The entire empire is actually helpless against the super body. This is where the real exaggeration comes. It's easy to block super bodies. Just know the destination of the super body and ask the president to release the psychers a certain amount in advance. The super body must go head-to-head with the psychers if it wants to achieve its goals. But it is impossible to chase the super body. No one knows which direction the super body will go outside the empire when it escapes. There's no way to pursue him when he's running away. All the empire can do is passive defense. Moreover, super bodies often enter the empire from different angles along the empire's borders. This resulted in the president having to stay awake 24 hours a day, and when a super body appeared, he would immediately send the long-prepared psychers to the appropriate position on the front line. Just thinking that this situation has been going on for at least a month makes Bai Quan feel a little numb. He shook his head and stopped thinking about it. Psychers always have a way to persevere as psychers. No matter what happens elsewhere, in short, we have to retreat. If the mechanical fleet has penetrated our defense line through unknown means, Gallo has no protective value. I have already chosen the route. I need to avoid the fleet that is invaded by the mechanical race. There are traces of warships that are suspected to be more advanced warship models. Yes, the deputy responded immediately, but then added, there is still a team that has not returned. The one you personally sent out before. Do you want to record it as missing? Don't. Bai Quan waved his hand, picked up the terminal and dialed a number and said, President, I'm sorry to bother you. The words fell. Psychic energy fluctuations and space fluctuations intertwined and appeared in the captain's room. This is the psychic fluctuation that belongs to the president. Although this may not be good for the president's psychic power really has a very important effect in both tactical and strategic senses. At the moment when the psychic energy fluctuation reached its peak, 12 tired-looking figures appeared in the captain's room. A young-looking officer at the front stepped forward, stood still, and saluted Bai Quan. Although there was an unmistakable fatigue in his expression, his eyes were extremely clear. Fortunately, the Mechanical Clan's Colossus-class battleship has been confirmed to have sunk. As he spoke, he took off a small special sensor recorder from his chest and placed it in front of Bai Quan. This records the entire process of the Mechanical Clan's Colossus being sunk. Bai Quan turned on the sensor directly and played the recorded content. Although there was no obvious external influence in the picture, the Colossus that was originally suspended quietly in the center of the mechanical fleet suddenly and inexplicably imploded. 2 of the 3 ring structures were burned directly from the engine, without any sign of invasion by foreign enemies. Bai Quan closed the record and said with satisfaction to the officer in front of him, "Well done, Liu Bai." Liu Bai was an electronic technician who once invaded the Yuhui giant shipyard with the help and command of Chen Ming and successfully seized control of part of the shipyard. After that, when Chen Ming met him again, he awakened a spiritual power that could control electrical signals. And within a few months of awakening his spiritual power, he relied on his spiritual power to destroy the mechanical race mothership. But now, there is another highlight in his record. Bai Quan put away the sensor and said, "Liu Bai, take your team to rest first. We will talk about other things later." "Yes." After Liu Bai left, Bai Quan turned to his deputy Xu Dong. "We have an advantage in tactical goals, but it does not mean that we have an advantage in strategy. Even if we achieve results on a battlefield, as long as it does not affect the strategic objectives, what we have to do will not change. Okay, everyone is here now. Let's do things. If you need to retreat, retreat without hesitation." "Yes." After the deputy left, Bai Quan was the only one left in the captain's room. He didn't ask his deputy to report the number of losses just now because he wanted to see for himself. After just one glance, he wanted to close the terminal without looking any further. The losses were indeed quite heavy. Nearly half of the 53 battleships that came over were sunk. A capital ship can carry tens of thousands of crew members, and every time it is sunk, it means the casualties of at least 1/3 of the crew. Even if they have only completely lost one battleship so far, the casualties along the way are already countless. Not to mention more crews, deportation, and escort losses. Even if many of the casualties were new recruits, those who survived were either veterans or became veterans. But it is difficult for them to continue to bear such losses. There is no benefit in prolonging the situation. They must withdraw. After Bai Quan finished reading the data, he closed his eyes and rubbed his eyebrows vigorously. He opened his eyes again, opened the terminal, searched for contacts, and made a call. Cheng Xinghai's voice soon sounded from the terminal. "Is there any news?" "Not yet." Both of them fell into silence. After a while, Bai Quan took the initiative and asked, "How are you doing over there?" "I have been on the front line since the war began." "I've wronged you." "It's okay. If I go to the front line, I will only give targets to the Machine Clan and waste unnecessary resources to protect me. It's good for me to stay in the back. At least I don't have to think about so many things." For others, it was a good thing not to be on the meat grinder front line of the empire in the machine race, but it was different for Cheng Xinghai. But as Cheng Xinghai said, if she wants to go to the front line, she will inevitably be targeted by the machine tribe. A similar thing happened last time in the mechanical race star territory. As the creation of the Shining Civilization, a creature that has similar emotions to the empire, the machine tribe does have the ability to understand interpersonal relationships. And they have already understood Chen Ming's interpersonal network, so they naturally know what Cheng Xinghai represents. Cheng Xinghai also knew what she should do to avoid putting unnecessary burden on others, so she took the initiative to choose to stay behind. Cheng Xinghai's sensibleness made Bai Quan fall into silence again. This time, it was Cheng Xinghai who took the initiative to break the silence. "Recently, someone from the empire brought people from Chen Ming to me and said they wanted to test a project he had worked on with others before. Can I go?" "What project?" "Neuronal connection technology." Bai Quan regained his energy a little, recalled the content of the project, and immediately said, "You can go. I have learned about this project. Even if you stay in the safe rear, you can use this technology to return to the battlefield." "Really? Chen Xinghai's tone was full of expectation. I know. After chatting with Bai Quan for a while about the current situation, Chen Xinghai hung up the phone and dialed another number. I agree to participate in the testing of neuron connection technology. When can I start? That's it now. Now. 10 minutes later, Chen Xinghai saw an alien shuttle boat landing in the school parking lot. A woman who looked to be in her 30s got off the shuttle, but it could be seen that she was just taking good care of herself. She took the initiative to hand a business card to Chen Xinghai and said, "Hello, Chen Xinghai. I am Su Ping, the technical partner of Chen Ming's friend Mr. Nwupiang." Who is Nwupiang? Su Ping chuckled and stretched out her hand to signal Chen Xing's sea shuttle. This is a bit complicated to say, so we'll talk about it later on the road. Chen Xinghai put away his business card and followed Su Ping onto the shuttle boat. After roughly learning from Su Ping what Chen Ming had not told her about Nwupiang, she probably understood why people came to her. So what exactly is this project going to do? Neuron link technology is a technology extended from the ability of a hive mind network that both Mr. Nwupiang and Mr. Chen Ming have mastered. The development of psychic technology now makes it possible to construct a psychic hive mind network. And as you know, in the current general environment, the application prospects of this technology are on battleships. These special warships have no pilots and rely purely on the hive mind network to link the warships and pilots. Simplifying the operation of the spacecraft through the thinking ability of the human brain greatly reduces the difficulty of operation. This places high demands on the level of consciousness of special drivers. We need psychers with enhanced thinking abilities to conduct the test. Chen Xinghai asked, "Has the sample been made?" Yes, in fact, there is a psyker in the Legion who has similar psychic effects to yours, but his direction is logistics and scientific research, and he does not understand ship command. Originally, this project was still a bit unfinished, but I suddenly remembered what Mr. Chen Ming said when this technology was first proposed. If this technology produces results, I can ask you to test it. This may be the most suitable technology for you. The results of the experiment will determine whether this technology can be applied to the front line during the war with the machine race. I know. At the same time, Odin Star Field. Chen Ming's old acquaintances, Liang Fei and Li Wei, were changing into military uniforms and boarding the local army's ship. The Odin Star territory is also close to the Edge Star territory, but they have not been attacked by the mechanical superbodies, but they do not have a strong enough military force. The Outer Fringe Star Field cannot hold it anymore, and they cannot survive alone. After retreating from the Edge Star Field of the Outer Ring, they, as the Star Field of the Outer Third Ring, need to send military forces to the front line. No one understands the principle of lips dying and teeth falling cold. As liaisons between the government and the military, the two of them need to go to the front line to obtain first-hand information and send it back to the government. As psychers, they are all around level 4, and they have some say on the ground, but in the war in space, even they are just a drop in the ocean. They were not supposed to be responsible for this task, but the failure of the war in the outer second ring star field caused the liaison personnel originally sent by the Odin government to lose contact. The two of them are not only replacing the missing liaison officer, but also serving as reinforcements to meet the troops retreating from the second outer ring road. Liang Fei said to Li Wei when changing his military uniform, "The situation over there won't be very good, and I don't know if we can withdraw." Li Wei said, "I heard that the people in Gaoyou next door are safe after they evacuate." Liang Fei shook his head and said, "They can even suppress the mechanical race over there. If there is not a mechanical race fleet that goes around, they can continue to resist. The reason they can retreat at will is because they have an advantage on the battlefield, forcing the machine tribe not to launch the next attack, and the machine tribe also needs time to rest after occupying the territory. But the situation here is not ideal. I hope our luck can be better." 3 days later, the fleet belonging to the battleship that Liang Fei and Li Weiqi boarded arrived at a star system between Audon and the outer second ring star field. This galaxy, like other galaxies outside, needs to evacuate the people in the galaxy. But before evacuating, the galaxy can still play some of its final roles. The friendly fleets in the next star field will pass through here when they are evacuating, and they will make temporary supplies before continuing to retreat. What Liang Fei and Li Weiqi's fleet have to do is to set up an ambush on the retreating path of the friendly fleet to block the pursuing mechanical fleet. Whether in the Empire or the machine race, not all fleets can use jump retreats without scruples. After all, warp is an important tactical ability with a limited number of uses. Navigating through hyperspace channels is the main means of travel for space battleships. This gives people the opportunity to ambush in war. Liang Fei and his fleet maintained the minimum engine power and only maintained the operation of the life support system and stayed in the galaxy. And in the command room of the fleet flagship, Liang Fei was beside the captain asking him questions. How long? The captain had great respect for Liang Fei, a psyker, and said without reservation, "Our own fleet will arrive in about an hour, and we will stop here for an hour to replenish supplies. If we don't use this half of the fleet, we don't have to worry about this matter. This is a matter for the other half of the fleet. When the time comes, whether they are withdrawn or us, they will be withdrawn together with the fleet that is already in the galaxy. The mechanical fleet behind is estimated to arrive in another 3 hours. Our task is to temporarily block them and delay them for about an hour. A lot of the population in the galaxy has been evacuated before, and this time is the last batch. Then the rights to use the defensive weapons on the colonial space stations in the galaxy have been transferred to us, so there should be no problem. I understand. Remember to notify me when the time comes. There will be a ship-wide broadcast at that time." Liang Fei nodded, turned, and left the command room, returning to his independent dormitory. Li Wei happened to return here at this time, and when he saw Liang Fei, he said with a slight complaint, "I walked around for a while, and to be honest, this group of soldiers is not very good. More than 80% of them are new recruits. They are not as good as those I enlisted in before. The quality is high," Liang Fei said helplessly. "In special times, there are so many good soldiers. Being able to board the flagship already shows that these people are the tallest among the short ones. Relax, it doesn't matter if you don't relax. Anyway, you are the one who feels uncomfortable. Hey." Liang Fei livened up the atmosphere between the two of them and returned to the formal tone. "Friendly forces will arrive in an hour, and the mechanical tribe's pursuers will arrive in about 3 hours. We are responsible for dealing with the pursuers." "How many?" "At least a fleet of 300 cruisers. When the machine tribe invaded, they didn't just focus on our direction. There were many other places that were also being hunted by the machine tribe. To be honest, we are very lucky here. After all, the battleship that was originally here was transferred to the nearby Gallo. In addition, our combat power is indeed not good. The mechanical clan has not even dispatched a replacement battleship, and only a few cruisers are left." Liang Fei is quite optimistic about the future situation. However, Li Wei still has a different view. "Even if only the cruiser is left, I can't say whether it is rescue or killing. We don't have the strength." Liang Fei understood why. Since his last brush with death, Li Wei had generally avoided dangerous things when he could. "You keep talking about it, but you still don't fall behind on what you need to do." So he comforted him again. "Don't worry, the new ships seem to have adopted new technologies. Those scientists said that our new ships are a bit higher than the average value of the mechanical ships. But I still don't understand why we have to go to the front line. Most of the psychers have to go to the front line. Our psychic powers are not enough for offense and more than enough for defense. We are also very good on the spaceship. The two of us, plus one, may not be worth as much as the new ship we are sitting on now. And in the past, psychics had no identity that could be revealed, so no one cared about them. But it is different now. I still feel that before." "Hey." Liang Fei waved his hand to interrupt Li Wei's nostalgia. "Let the past go by. Anyway, things always have good and bad moments. But I have a bad feeling." "I have it too. Anyway, just do what you have to do. Did you bring that thing?" "Bring it. Then there's nothing to worry about." "I can't say." Although Li Wei didn't say anything more now, it was still difficult for him to really not worry. He walked around the captain's cabin anxiously for a long time and finally chose to close his eyes and meditate, adjust his mental state, and make final preparations. Soon after, the friendly fleet has arrived in the galaxy. The entire fleet only has over 100 battle cruisers, less than 500 destroyers, and only about 500 escorts. And there are about as many personnel transport ships as combat ships. Not a single ship in the entire fleet is still intact. Every ship has more or less structural damage. It is considered very good to be able to drive back. Of course, not all the ordinary people taken away by this fleet were there. Many other fleets were also trying to evacuate. In fact, the vast majority of the population relies on Stargate transportation, and only a small portion of the population that is too late to go to the Stargate will be taken away through this method. But having said that, there are still many people who can only escape the fate of being killed by the machine race through fleet transportation. And judging from the number of personnel transport ships in the fleet at this time, the casualties among ordinary people have exceeded 1/3. One can only imagine how many people died on the road. After the fleet arrived, the engineering ships that had been prepared in the system immediately crowded in like a swarm, carried out emergency repairs on the damaged ships, and quickly used resources brought from the colonies in the system to fill these affected areas. Supplies for damaged ships. Liang Fei's fleet was still hidden in a dark asteroid belt on the ecliptic plane of the galaxy, waiting silently. Time passed by minute. Friendly fleets in the system gradually evacuated. An hour after the friendly forces completely evacuated, the fluctuations of the hyperspace lane jump engine once again appeared at the edge of the galaxy. The ship-wide announcement immediately sounded on the flagship spacecraft, and the silent fleet immediately became active. The mechanical fleet appeared from the edge of the galaxy, and after preliminary reconnaissance, approached the planet where the friendly forces evacuation fleet was replenishing supplies. The number of mechanical fleets is greater than the number of fleets ambushed here, but the difference is not too big. Moreover, the purpose of the fleet's trip is only to delay time, not to really destroy the fleet. The chances of achieving your goal are high. When the fleet of the mechanical race passed through the asteroid belt in the galaxy, they did not detect this group of fleets hiding in the asteroid belt. The commander of the fleet did not rush to take action, but allowed these mechanical fleets to pass directly. As an ambush hunter, he wants to find the most suitable time. And just as the entire fleet of the mechanical race was about to pass through the asteroid belt, they completely exposed the sides and rear of the fleet. The commander immediately issued the order. The hidden fleet was fully activated, inserting from the most vulnerable side and rear of the mechanical fleet, instantly creating a large number of results. The shields of many mechanical battleships are not full-width shields. The shields can only be opened directly in front of the ship, or the opening speed is not ideal, resulting in full fire coverage from this wave of raids. For a time, the Odin fleet was almost unscathed in exchange for nearly 1/3 of the mechanical fleet's battle losses. The objectively existing gap in the number of fleets will be completely smoothed out. There was also a short burst of cheers in the command room. But the cheers were quickly interrupted by a panicked exclamation. "Command! New fluctuations are discovered at the edge of the galaxy." The situation at the edge of the galaxy was immediately displayed on the large screen in the command room. I saw the moment when the transition fluctuations were smoothed out. Another mechanical fleet appears here. The flagship of this fleet is a mechanical mothership. The number of enemies far exceeds the expected size. The intelligence is wrong. Change the battle plan. Retreat. The commander made a prompt decision. But at this time, the raid of the Odin fleet had already caused the entire fleet to pierce into the mechanical fleet. This caused chaos in the mechanical fleet formation, but also caused the Odin fleet to lose its flexibility. The reinforcements from the mechanical tribe arrived instantly, giving them absolutely no chance to retreat. Even at this time, their fleet has entered the range of the mothership that is still at the edge of the galaxy. During the period when most communication signals are transmitted to the outside world, the mothership is naturally regarded as the first target. I saw the spine cannon mounted on the mothership lit up with increased energy, and a red laser beam was fired. Even if the flagship is already performing maneuvers, it takes 3 minutes for light to reach the galaxy from the edge. But the beam still accurately hit the flagship's shield. The shield only lasted for less than 3 seconds before the spacecraft was almost overloaded and forced to shut down. But this is the longest time that the specially modified flagship can sustain it. If other cruisers are hit by the laser beam, they will be directly destroyed. After breaking through the flagship's shield, the mothership's laser hit the armor unabated. The surging beam energy instantly melted the armor, and the hull structure was directly penetrated. Fortunately, the flagship had a chance to adjust its position after being hit by the beam. There will be no direct chance. But the entire ship also fell into the dilemma of overloading the radiation system. Li Wei, who was in the command room, couldn't sit still the moment the shield was damaged. He stood up and rushed directly towards the direction of the destroyed structure of the flagship. Everyone had already changed into protective clothing before the battle began. He was able to reach the vicinity of the structure of the ship that had been penetrated by the mothership without being affected. However, the passage from the complete area to the section of the ship's gap has been closed by airtight doors. Li Wei could only stand behind and flood the psychic energy waves into the gap in the hull. Some snow-white foam appeared along the traces of spiritual energy fluctuations and quickly solidified in the vacuum, building a solid foam layer on the gap in the hull, completely dividing the cosmic environment and the interior of the ship. A bubble that goes out as soon as it is blown is a bubble, and a bubble that is strong enough to seal the gap in a battleship is also a bubble. And there is a large amount of pure white foam growing from the hull, creating a dense layer of foam on the side of the hull. The second attack from the mechanical race mothership also followed. The red laser beam did not hit the hull this time, but hit the foam layer created by Li Wei. The complex structure inside the transparent foam layer directly split the battleship's laser beam. After careful adjustment by Li Wei, it was fired at the surrounding mechanical fleet. This created some room for the Odin fleet to maneuver. The commander immediately seized this fleeting opportunity and ordered the fleet to adjust its attitude in order to escape from the gap created by the mothership itself. But the next moment, the mothership suddenly disappeared at the edge of the galaxy, made a short jump into the galaxy, and almost stuck to the face of the Odin fleet. Together with the mechanical fleet that Audon raided, they were caught in the middle. The mothership's ridge gun nose was immediately adjusted, and the gun nose was replaced from a laser beam with an energy restraint projectile. At an almost face-to-face distance, 3 consecutive energy restraint bombs fired from the spine cannon were fired directly at the mothership. The first energy restraint bomb exploded when it hit civilian Li Wei's foam layer, completely clearing the foam layer. The second and third energy restraint rounds rushed towards the flagship almost without any hindrance. Several extremely thick chains suddenly appeared near the period, wrapping the ship's body in them. Liang Fei also rushed to the side opposite the flagship and mothership. Although the chain shattered instantly under the attack of 2 subsequent energy restraint bullets, part of the impact was still alleviated. However, the next moment, a violent explosion was heard from the direction of the command room. Even if the main-level weapons are slightly blocked by the 2 four-machine psychics, the cruiser is still too weak to compete with other weapons possessed by the capital ship. Judging from the busy tone on the communication channel, there should be no one alive in the command room. No matter the captain or anyone else, there was no chance of survival. The entire spacecraft's command system has been completely paralyzed. A missile from the mothership hit the hull structure not far in front of the 2 people, completely destroying the foam filled by Li Wei and the airtight doors on both sides. Li Wei was thrown away by the airflow that was sucking out the air inside, and was then pulled back by a chain. But when Liang Fei pulled him back, Li Wei's body was like a fragment of armor. The gas in the protective suit and the blood in Li Wei's body were leaking rapidly. He seemed to have more air coming out and less air coming in. Liang Fei yelled at him anxiously, "Where's the thing?" Li Wei vaguely heard the voice coming from the communicator and reluctantly stretched out his trembling hand and pointed at his waist. Liang Fei did not dare to waste time and found a gray-green cocoon-shaped object in the closed pocket around his waist. He immediately crushed the cocoon and stuffed the gray-green juice and cocoon into Li Wei's arms. A large amount of gray-green biomass immediately wrapped the wound on Li Wei's body and penetrated deep into the wound. At this time, Liang Fei saw a dazzling light from the corner of his eye. He turned to look outside the damaged hull. The light of another energy restraint bomb coming from the mothership is approaching rapidly. If this energy restraint bomb hits, the ship will be completely destroyed. Even the methods and whooping left behind seemed unable to change the outcome. Li Wei opened his eyes weakly. I can't see the hope of us winning. Liang Fei closed his eyes subconsciously and raised his hands to block himself. Countless chains also appeared from around him, stacked heavily in the direction where he faced the mothership. Maybe this can block 1 or 2 attacks from the mothership, but the outcome, maybe there will be no change. Liang Fei sighed in his heart and let go of what he was thinking. Just a few seconds later, he didn't feel that his chain was broken, nor did he feel that he had been substantially hurt. When he opened his eyes again, he found out. The collapsed shield of his flagship at this time actually restarted again and even blocked the attack from the mechanical race mothership without any damage. The energy fluctuations caused by the explosion of the energy restraint bomb surged outside the shield, but it failed to cause any damage to him and the flagship. The special luster and fluctuations on the shield made Liang Fei immediately think of something. That is the shield connection technology of the battleship. This allows the main-level shield of the battleship to be coordinated with the shields of mid- and lower-level ships at the same frequency, allowing the main-level shield to share the firepower pressure for the lower-level ships. But the command room of the spacecraft had been blown up just now, and the main control should have been destroyed. Even if their reinforcements arrived, it would be impossible to activate the shield of the spacecraft that had lost the main control under normal circumstances. But the reality is obviously different from what Liang Fei thought. The flagship he was on was attacked by the mothership. Even the mothership of the mechanical race immediately pulled away after the attack and returned to the cluster of the approaching mechanical race fleet from behind. Relying on the fleet's firepower, it launched an attack on the other side of the flagship. Liang Fei glanced at the direction of the mechanical fleet through the gap in the hull, and then glanced at Li Wei beside him. I saw that Li Wei's wounds were recovering quickly. The fragments of the spacecraft armor that had penetrated his body had been squeezed out by the gray-green biomass and were healing rapidly. He reached out and used chains to fix Liang Fei in place to prevent Li Wei from flying around after the spacecraft's simulated gravity system was shut down. Then he released a new chain and hooked it to the edge of the gap in the flagship's hull structure, throwing himself directly out of the flagship and landing on the top of the flagship. At this time, the mechanical tribe had completely ignored the cruiser he was on and focused all its attention on the other side. Liang Fei turned around and looked. I saw a large number of Imperial ships appearing in the direction of the mechanical race's firepower coverage. That is, on the flanks of the Odin fleet and the mechanical race fleet they ambush. There was even a Conqueror-class battlecruiser among them. People from Xinda Company? Where Liang Fei looked, all the warships that jumped over were all Xinda Company's ships. There is something strange about the construction of these ships. Logically speaking, the entire command room should be covered by the machine's tight armor. The armor installed here is even thicker than some frontal armor. Armor in the command room is necessary, but not this much at all. Before Liang Fei had time to think about it, he heard the voice of the commander of the fleet, a female voice. The surviving ships immediately coordinated their shield frequencies and connected them to the friendly command system. Surviving personnel, please enter the escape capsule immediately and wait for capture by the rescue spacecraft. Liang Fei was surprised, but he didn't care much. He directly used the chain to hook the gap that had just been created and prepared to go back and stuff Li Wei into the escape cabin. It's better to live than to die here. Liang Fei was just about to use his strength when suddenly he noticed something strange closer from the corner of his eye. Right at the bow of his flagship, where the smoke from the flagship command room was still rising, the smoke from the explosion was gradually dissipating. It seems like something is moving there. Due to the viewing angle problem, the structure of the ship's hull blocked Liang Fei's direct gaze, making it impossible for him to look over there clearly. He hesitated for a moment, then jumped up on the spot and looked at the front of the spacecraft, where the command room was. There was no mechanical structure at this time, and everything was covered by a mass of gray-green biomass. Countless gray-green flesh and blood were spreading along the ship's structure to different locations on the ship. Let this crumbling ship be supported again. Liang Fei looked in the direction of the new fleet again. The ships over there are still firing clouds of gray-green biomass in the direction of the completely destroyed ships in their Odin fleet. Although Liang Fei didn't know what it was, The familiar color and texture of the creature made him feel at ease. He pulled the chain on his arm and pulled himself into the spacecraft. Carrying Li Wei, whose wounds were basically healed, he ran towards the escape cabin. At the same time, in the 14th star region, in the Neuron Connection Project laboratory, Chen Ming was lying on a facility similar to the one she often used for simulated battles. Wearing a helmet connected to countless fine lines, her neural signals are connected to the Zerg neurons on countless spaceships. The nearby equipment was densely surrounded, and hundreds of researchers devoted all their attention to the equipment they were responsible for. Su Ping was standing next to Chen Ming at this time, and could clearly see the situation encountered by the fleet controlled by Chen Ming through a projection screen dozens of meters away. This image was also projected in front of some people from the Empire and the 14th Legion, allowing them to pay close attention to this important experimental test. It can also provide Chen Ming with some guidance on commanding the main fleet. Su Ping asked Chen Ming softly, "How do you feel?" "Very good, very good." Chen Ming had never had such a feeling of commanding a ship. Neuron connection technology allows commanders on the battlefield to observe the entire battle situation from a third perspective, rather than being limited to the perspective of a flagship. And the need for command capabilities to command larger fleets can be further reduced. She had no previous experience commanding a capital ship, but now she is not only able to command the capital ships, but every ship in the fleet can also use her fingers like an arm, without any lag in issuing orders layer by layer. Not only the feelings mentioned by Chen Ming, but also the data monitored on the equipment next to it also proves the excellence of this technology. Su Ping also showed a satisfied smile on her face. "Go ahead." "Yeah." In the battlefield near the Auden Star territory, the reinforced fleet, under the control of Chen Ming, quickly eliminated the mechanical fleet that blocked the retreat of the Auden fleet. A large number of Zerg neurons were launched onto the spaceship battleship whose control system was damaged. It doesn't matter if the command room blows up, she will control it. It doesn't matter if the control panel blows up, the biological neurons will repair the ship on its own. She continues to expand her fleet. Every spacecraft is being scheduled with precision. If there is a living person, send the living person away in an escape cabin. The spaceships without living people are used for rearing and fighting. This battle is not just a rescue. It is also an important test. The laboratory needs a batch of actual combat data, and it won't be a loss even if the fleet runs out. And this entire process of expanding and controlling the fleet did not put much pressure on her mental strength. Although Chen Ming's current psychic level is only around level 4. However, warships controlled by neuron connection technology will also give the driver a certain bonus to the thinking ability of Zerg neurons. And this is only to control the control of the spacecraft, not to completely control the spacecraft like Chen Ming, so the mental burden will naturally not be too heavy. This is also good news for neuron connection technology. The outcome of the battle began to tilt in her direction immediately after Chen Ming's fleet joined. Although the mechanical tribe is fighting Chen Ming, they are still trying to avoid the enemy. They only dare to engage in long-distance battles and have no intention of going further. Instead, the battlefield here turned into the Empire's fleet chasing the mechanical fleet. But soon, things changed. The mechanical race reversed its recent decline and took the initiative to launch a counterattack against the Imperial fleet. Chen Ming's ears immediately heard the reminder from the Legion. Reinforcements from the mechanical tribe are likely to arrive soon. Chen Ming knew this very well without being reminded. But she has no intention of changing her policy. Obtaining combat data is also one of her goals. Moreover, the fleet behind has captured all the escape capsules that still have life signals, and has begun to conduct jump evacuation in an organized manner. The fleet in front no longer needs to look back, they only need to exert their due strength. Soon, 2 mechanical race motherships led the fleet to jump in. They are all fleets coming from the star field next door. Now that Baikwan guarding Jeloa has been withdrawn, the excess resources will naturally be dispersed to the surrounding star fields. The situation on the battlefield changed again. The Empire's fleet is just like the machine race's fleet, resolutely executing combat orders without fear of death. until all the ships connected by neurons were destroyed and the screen in the laboratory went completely black. The battle was finally over. 10 minutes later, the closed door of the neuron connection laboratory opens. Su Ping and Cheng Xinghai left the laboratory. I happened to meet Su Lin, the chairman of Xinda Company. Chairman Su. Cheng Xinghai and Su Ping both took the initiative to say hello to Su Lin in a friendly way. Cheng Xinghai knew that Su Lin had taken the initiative to be a matchmaker before, so he was somewhat grateful to Su Lin. Of course, Su Ping knew Su Lin because Xinda Company funded this project. Since Chairman Zeng relied on all aspects of operations and himself to win over his old face and mend the relationship with Chen Ming again, Xinda Company has been supporting everything related to Chen Ming. Of course, the neuron connection technology that Chen Ming is also involved in is the same. To test this technology, Sindar provided a large number of mass-produced warships. It's perfect to pair with this Zerg neuron, which is also mass-produced. He came here this time to personally confirm the results of this experiment. The actual test results are very good. After learning Su Lin's purpose, Su Ping immediately gave him a reassuring guarantee. This technology can be widely promoted. Both the Empire and the 14th Legion are paying attention to this technology, and someone should ask about it soon. One day later, the capital of the Empire. The Minister of Psychics was looking at a star map in his office and sighing. As the second in command of the Empire, he has been personally paying attention to all aspects of the war with the machine race. He knows that there are many places where many tactical arrangements have been successful. But in terms of the Empire's overall strategy, it can be said that there has been almost no change. Tactical success did not make the Empire's strategic plan easier to deploy. As of today, the first outer ring has been completely occupied, and more than half of the outer second ring has been invaded by the machine race. Originally, there were many star fields that were not the main attack direction of the machine race. However, due to the loss and retreat of nearby star fields, they ushered in more enemies and had to retreat together. Coupled with the threat of the mechanical colossus, the Empire had to spend a lot of resources on evacuating the people. The losses in all aspects directly wiped out 1/10 of the Empire's effective strength in less than 2 months. The Empire can only continue to recruit troops, recruit soldiers from all over the country, and constantly transform industrial facilities to invest in the military. But no matter what, even if the Empire's technical talents are working at full capacity, there is no way for the Empire's technology to achieve sufficient breakthroughs in a short period of time. The technology left over from the Shining Civilization alone is not enough for the Empire's fleet to have the strength to crush the mechanical fleet. Not to mention, the machine race's fleet far exceeds the Empire's in number. The borders of the Empire on the star map have turned red, and the few green areas have gradually turned red in recent days. The Empire is being heavily surrounded by machines. The only short-term good news is that the mechanical tribe did not continue to attack violently. Instead, they chose to take root at the borders of the Empire and build a mechanical colony. In the short term, the military strength of the mechanical tribe will be delayed to a certain extent by these colonies, but once it takes a long time to allow these colonies to be produced, the subsequent attacks on the Empire will be more severe. Chen Ming's figure flashed subconsciously in the minister's mind, but the news of Chen Ming's loss of contact and the stabilized scarlet rift outside the Empire forced him to turn his thoughts to other aspects. Thinking about how to deal with the endless machines. He has to think about it, and when necessary, he even has to set out to try to solve these problems himself. The office phone suddenly rang. It was his secretary who called him. The minister immediately answered the phone, and the secretary's voice rang from the phone. "Minister, the results of the Neuron Project test are out." The psychic minister thought for a while and asked, "Chen Ming?" "Yes, the results are ideal. This technology has been studied since the year before last. The latest large-scale test has Cheng Xinghai as the main experimenter. Enough data has been obtained, and it can be applied in war." Hearing the words Cheng Xinghai, the minister immediately thought of something. His eyes lit up for a moment, but then dimmed quickly. "If I remember correctly, Cheng Xinghai is a level 4 psyker, right?" "Yes." "Can this technology be used in the military? Can it be widely used?" The person in charge said yes. There is a psycho researcher named Higu over there who has developed a method for applying this technology in the military field. It has also been tested so that ordinary people can also control the ship. Their theory is that the virtual brain of the hive mind cluster will take the initiative to assume part of the ship's control capabilities. At the same time, the subconscious mind of the human brain will share the pressure of the main control system of the spacecraft with each other. When using this technology to control the spacecraft, the number of crew members required can be smaller than that of directly arranging people on the spacecraft. They said that all research data has been transferred to Fanchao Research Institute. You should receive the verification report from Fanchao soon. I have an impression of Higu. Chen Ming's eyes sometimes chatted with the Minister of Psychics about various matters, and occasionally mentioned Higu a few times. After all, Higu is the only researcher Chen Ming knows who wants to shift psychic technology from military to civilian use. So Chen Ming doesn't mind helping out a little bit. But isn't the speed of this research a bit too fast? The secretary responded. The project leader said that Higu had already been conducting research in this area before this experiment started. It seems that they all believe that this technology will definitely play a role, and a lot of preparations have been made very early. I believe it too. The Minister of Psychic Energy whispered to himself and then asked, "Does this technology have any side effects?" For ordinary people, yes. It is said that when the structure of this hive mind network is running on ordinary people, multiple consciousnesses will exist at the same time. Because it is impossible to control a destroyer or above-level spacecraft with the intensity of consciousness of ordinary people, multiple people need to be connected to the same hive mind cluster to control them. They will all be negatively affected by the hive mind network. BR? For psychers, the situation is exactly the opposite, because the consciousness of psychers is strong enough to control the ship alone, and only the controlled ship exists in their mental network. For example, Cheng Xinghai from the previous experiment is a pure brain-enhanced psyker. Level 4 is enough to control more than one battleship and thousands of cruisers at the same time without any burden. If other psychics come, the number will need to be lowered, but there will certainly not be the same pressure as ordinary people. I understand. What specific impact will it have? Well, for example, ordinary people may feel uncomfortable with the convergence of thinking patterns. Some people with greatly different thinking patterns will have difficulty adapting to staying in the same cellular network for a long time. Even if they adapt, there will be sequelae. Then when different people are in the same hive mind network, some people may share the same information with each other, and it is difficult to completely guarantee personal privacy. Also, after staying on the cellular network for a long time, people's cognition may be biased, leading to some mental illnesses. And, while listening to the secretary's sequelae, the minister was also looking at the report from the project team sent by the secretary specifically for leaders and various outsiders to see. The operating logic of this technology is roughly stated above. This technology is probably the special effect achieved by the functional structure of neurons and spacecraft. Although the report wrote a lot about the spacecraft, he could see clearly that the main key to the operation of this technology actually lies in the neurons, not the spacecraft itself. This means that the Empire's spaceship production line does not need to change much in order for this plan to continue running. Even the Empire can directly produce warships without a main control system and directly install neurons. This can increase the overall ship manufacturing efficiency by at least 20%. After the full application of this technology, the military strength of the Empire can be at least doubled. The question of loss that he had just been thinking about was no longer an issue. Thinking of this, the minister directly interrupted the secretary and said, "Side effects are not a problem. Mental illness is better than dying on the battlefield. Which of the sequelae of military stimulants is not more serious than mental illness? As long as we can solve problems without military power, no matter how big the problem is, it won't be a problem. Does the project team have any plan to solve the sequelae? No. No, it doesn't matter. We can handle this kind of thing ourselves. Find a way to recruit psychiatrists for the army. Conduct the most complete psychological tests for all those who use these equipment, arrange the best doctors, and treat problems if they arise. As long as no one is killed, isn't it easy to cure some psychological problems? then the issue of memory sharing actually has little impact. The main thing is that the memories of some important commanders cannot be leaked. I remember that we have psychics in this area, and we also have technology in this area. We can set up an isolation layer in the minds of commanders of a certain level to protect important memories. Easy to fix. What side effects? It's all bullshit. The minister emphasized again, no matter what problems this project has, they must be solved. As long as this project can advance, we still have hope of winning. Soon after, the news that Cheng Xinghai relied on new and extremely promising technology to successfully perform a rescue mission in the Audon star field and conduct a comprehensive test of the technology quickly reached Bai Quan's ears. When Bai Quan heard the news, he happened to have left Gallo and was stationed with the fleet at the border of the three-ring star field behind Gallo. And when the experiment was going on, it happened to be when he was assembling the local army of the fleet. At this time, the local army has been integrated into his army, and only unified dispatch and command can ensure combat effectiveness. Under his restrictions, the pace of the mechanical tribe's subsequent invasion was obviously much slower than elsewhere. So he also had time to check the specific progress of this matter afterwards. After learning that this technology had been implemented throughout the Empire under the mandatory requirements of the Empire, he subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. As the first person to know about this technology, he knew very well how powerful this technology was and how important it was to the Empire. The difficulty for empires in converting resources into war potential lies not in the resources themselves, but in the people who use them, converting will into military power. It takes as little as a month to train a group of army recruits. However, it takes 3 months to 2 years to train a group of soldiers who can cooperate to pilot spacecraft of different levels, from the lowest frigate to the current top-notch capital ship. Such a long training time simply cannot keep up with the rate of consumption in high-intensity wars. Although war can make people grow rapidly, the military can choose to forcibly shorten the training time and let people go directly to the war to familiarize themselves with the operation of the spacecraft. But this will not last long, and the damage to personnel will be more serious. Now, the emergence of this technology can almost perfectly solve this problem. The soldiers who have been cultivated do not need to go directly to the front line, but control the spacecraft on the front line through neural links from a safe rear. As long as the consciousness can hold on and the logistics can keep up, the battle can continue. Even if the ship is destroyed, the people will still remain and have the experience of driving the ship in battle. Although the effect is definitely not as good as the growth it brings to people in a real battlefield where death is possible at any time. But as long as people don't die, there will be infinite possibilities in the future. Bai Quan is very optimistic about the future of this technology. Just thinking about the origin of this technology made him feel a little uncontrollably disappointed. Bai Quan took out his terminal. This is what he has been doing every week since Chen Ming lost contact. He followed the order in the terminal's address book and dialed several communication codes belonging to Chen Ming. If no one answers a number, move on to the next one. However, no one answered these numbers as before, and Chen Ming also had no news as before. But, just when Bai Quan dialed the number in Chen Ming's office, the call was suddenly connected. Bai Quan's heartbeat suddenly accelerated, and unparalleled expectations suddenly rose in his heart. But Wu Wen's voice came from the communication, Bai Quan. Bai Quan sighed in his heart and asked disappointedly, "Why is it you? I withdrew from Gallo and didn't want to return to the Empire, so of course I came here. Chen Ming still hasn't come back, so I will temporarily manage it for him." "That's it, then it's okay." Bai Quan didn't explain why he made this call. Wu Wen should understand. But just as he was about to hang up the phone, he suddenly thought of something else and asked, "How is the situation with your president? I asked him to do me a favor before, but don't let anything go wrong." "I don't know what to say either." Wu Wen's mind flashed through the scene he had seen during a video call with people in the association. In short, the president is now lying in a device specially prepared for him to help him wake up and fall asleep quickly. You also know that the superbody is something we can't handle now. If there is no president, the superbody can really rush into any corner of the empire and cause destruction. So the president must lie on the device and use his psychic powers to send psychers to different places at any time. He can't do anything else. Sounds a bit. Everyone knows that this is not good, but this is what the president asked for. He would rather turn himself into a machine. This is what he said. If you don't do this, the super body of the mechanical race will have no means of countermeasures, and only I am qualified to sit in this position. Everyone has something to do. Wuan took the initiative to break Bai Quan's silence and said, "You should be the same in the future, right? Your new technology should be fully used soon." "You mean neuron connection technology?" "Yes. You ordinary soldiers can take turns fighting, but no one can take over for you as a commander. When the war is at its most intense, you may need to fight several or even dozens of battles in a row without rest. At least the president can rest when he should, but what about you and the others? Commanding a high-intensity fleet battle is no easier than using our psychic powers, especially for ordinary people. Can you handle it?" Bai Quan did not answer the question, but said, "I am ready." Wuan didn't have much to say, just like he didn't have much to say about the president's choice. "Good luck. I also wish you good luck and hope Chen Ming can come back soon." The phone hangs up. Wuan was standing next to Chen Ming's desk at this time. He put down the phone on the table, stared at Chen Ming's seat for a few times, then turned and sat back on the sofa. He has been sitting here for several days. Since he arrived at Chen Ming's colony a few days ago, he has seen that everything in the colony is as usual, and there are no problems caused by Chen Ming's loss of contact. This is what Chen Ming has been doing. Even if he is not here, everything in the two core star fields belonging to him will continue to operate as usual. So Wuan only had a rough understanding of the operating logic of the colony, and after everything was fine, he didn't pay much attention to the situation of the colony. Just sitting here waiting silently, while he is still building the city in his conscious space. Constantly repairing Chen Ming's image in the city to be more complete, closer to reality and his perception. This can preserve his memory of Chen Ming, and also use the power that belongs to Chen Ming to strengthen his consciousness. Everyone in the colony knew that Wuan was Chen Ming's mentor, so he still stayed in Chen Ming's office. Wuan's stay was not in vain. After staying here for 2 days, he told several senior officials in the colony, such as Liu Kantian, that they could contact him if they had anything to do. He was a level 6 psyker anyway. By the way, he can also use Chen Ming's intelligence network to understand the current situation in the empire. Wuan picked up the terminal and took a look. The above will send information compiled by Hui Wang every day. At present, it seems that although the empire performed poorly in the war with the mechanical tribe in the first 2 months, it can be said that it is completely unable to stop the offensive of the mechanical tribe in most places. But after nearly 2 months, the empire has gradually adapted to this kind of high-intensity war. The battle line was basically stabilized between the second outer ring and the third outer ring. When Ming's new technology is used in batches, perhaps the situation will change. The empire did not rush all the way to hell. It stopped at the gate of hell. And based on Wuan's understanding of Chen Ming and this technology, the core of this technology lies in biological neurons. Such items made by the Zerg can be used after being modified with simple human technology. Even the Zerg themselves can solve the transformation process. Chen Ming didn't know where the Zerg were currently distributed, but he knew that the Zerg was definitely very widely distributed in the universe. And the Zerg also have special means and established colonial connections to deliver these neurons. The output of these biological neurons can therefore be almost infinite. How many neuron warships can be created depends only on the Empire's warship production and the number of personnel who can pilot the warships. The Insect Queen is still following Chen Ming's last order before losing contact, cooperating with the Empire to resist the invasion of the machine race. Even if Chen Ming loses contact, what he left behind is still helping the Empire go further. The Empire's military strength will definitely skyrocket in the future, and the spare spaceships that were previously driven by insufficient personnel can be used. If one batch is lost, the next batch can still be picked up. As long as the neuron-connected pilots do not lose consciousness, there will be a steady stream of ships that can go to the front line. The resources accumulated by the Empire after hundreds of years of stagnation are enough to allow it to continue to support itself during the war. Although in the eyes of discerning people, neuron technology has various benefits. But the implementation of new technologies is not always smooth sailing. When the various armies of the empire first implemented this technology, no matter which army they were, they could only group people into groups by conducting simple psychological tests on soldiers, grouping people with similar personalities, thinking, etc. together to cooperate in controlling the spacecraft. This approach is obviously not perfect enough. Internal conflicts among soldiers occurred frequently due to issues such as minor conflicts and memory leaks. However, the high-level officials of the empire issued a death order, and the high-level military officials of all parties also knew how much improvement such a technology could bring to the army. No matter how big the internal contradictions and conflicts are, they must be erased under this voice. After about 2 weeks of forced break-in period. Basically, every unit that fought against the machine race on the front line chose to eliminate nearly 1/10 of its soldiers at the most intense moment of the war. Let the pressure on the front line further increase. However, precisely because of the elimination of this 1/10 of the effective force, after completing the integration of the army, the direct military force that the empire can call upon has at least tripled. The increase in military strength was 20% higher than originally expected. After human consciousness enters a hive thinking network with similar thinking patterns, they will coordinate their subconscious minds with each other. Let the spiritual power originally hidden in the human brain be fully unleashed, allowing the hive mind cluster to reduce the number of personnel controlling the ship to a greater proportion than in the test. This is the source of the extra 20% military power. Eliminated soldiers will be diagnosed by a psychologist and transferred to logistics after a certain period of psychological treatment. There will also be people in the logistics who join the frontline troops because of their own strength of consciousness. This is a comprehensive deployment at the military level, and no one will be left out. All for the sake of war. In addition to problems at the soldier level, there are also problems at the officer level. The commander's consciousness often needs to coordinate the consciousness of his subordinate soldiers, and he needs to bear tremendous pressure. The officers at the middle and lower levels were fine, and the mental pressure of dozens or hundreds of people was still bearable with Zerg neurons. But the mental pressure faced by officers who can command larger numbers of soldiers is no longer something that ordinary people can easily accept. Psychotropic drugs will also become standard in military rations. The drugs originally produced for psychics will be produced after reducing the content of the drug ingredients in proportion and distributed to every officer in need. And the higher-level generals. That includes all kinds of mental drugs, various devices that stimulate mental power, and other things that can enhance the mental power of ordinary people and protect their consciousness. Even so, this is still a huge test for the generals. There are still some generals who find it difficult to adapt to the new combat methods, even if there are various facilities specially prepared by the Follow-Up Research Institute that are specially used to connect neurons to the hive mind network to reduce the mental burden on the generals. It was also difficult for them to withstand the impact of being exposed to the consciousness of an entire army during this period of time, and they were forced to take a back seat. Only the true elite can remain on the battlefield. After completing comprehensive optimization from ships to soldiers to generals, the empire is almost completely different from the past, and its strategic policy is no longer purely about shrinking the defense line. Instead, they continued to infiltrate and harass the mechanical clan's front while ensuring that the defense line was stable. Investigate the use of colonial resources by the mechanical tribe after they invaded the empire and occupied the first and second outer rings of the empire. The reason is naturally for future counterattacks. Although the empire's sudden increase in military power in a short period of time has exceeded the strength of the mechanical tribe on the frontal battlefield. But the empire was in no hurry. It is very likely that the machine tribe has backup reinforcements. And the empire does need to wait for a critical opportunity. June 9th, 5605 AD. In the middle of the second month after the Neuron ship was fully commissioned. It was also 3.5 months after the war between the Empire and the Machine Tribe began. The Supernatural Research Institute released a paper titled Deconstruction of the Superbody. The names were signed by Brilliant, Extraordinary, and the former director of the Ship Research Institute of the 14th Army Corps, the director of the Psychic Research Institute, and the director of the Psychic Research Institute, who are now retired and hanging out with Chen Ming. In this paper, the complete research process of the superbody by the Super Research Institute is given in detail. Analyze the manufacturing of superbodies from the macro to the micro level, from theory to actual manufacturing, from basic material disassembly to the top-level operating logic. An in-depth analysis of all the capabilities of a warship like the superbody. At the same time, the weaknesses of the superbody are also thoroughly analyzed, and methods for dealing with the superbody are given. Even the means given for dealing with superbodies are very difficult. But on the 6th day after the publication of Superbody Deconstruction, the Empire successfully destroyed the second supership of the Machine Tribe without any casualties. The last time the superbody was destroyed, a level 6 Psyker was lost. This time, the Empire could even say that it had not consumed any mental power except for the mental power of a few Psykers who participated in the battle to destroy the superbody. Of course, if we have to count, the complete trial supership belonging to Chen Ming was not controlled by the Alpha-class Afterglow and appeared on the battlefield in the early stages of the war between the Empire and the Machine Tribe. But all in all, as long as this paper comes out, as long as the superbody of the mechanical family is destroyed, then it's all worth it. The technical environment left behind by Chen Ming. After all, it played a role and promoted further research and development of superbody-related technologies. The superbody is no longer an enemy that cannot be targeted. As long as it dares to appear on the battlefield again, what awaits it will be hunted by several level 6 Psykers under the guidance of the president. This solved one of the Empire's biggest problems at present, which was the problem of not having any follow-up means to counterattack the machine race. The machine race suppresses the Empire in all aspects. The early defeats in the war prevented the Empire from achieving this goal through the fleet. Only the truly top combat Psykers can try to play a role in breaking through the siege of the machine fleet. It's a pity that the mechanical tribe used superbodies to hold back all the high-level combat power of the Empire. Not all level 6 Psykers can withstand or repel one-on-one attacks. Therefore, most Psykers are unable to dispatch on the front lines of the war, and those who can mobilize must always be alert to sudden attacks by superbodies. Therefore, the machine race can use ships to suppress the Empire and delay time. The longer they delay, the more they can gain a foothold on the Empire's borders, but the Empire cannot afford to delay. The more the machine race drags on, the more the Empire is restricted and the more it drags on. Even if there is new technology, this technology cannot be used without restrictions. The longer it is used, the greater the damage to consciousness. Especially for generals and commanders, the stalemate with the machine race is the worst situation for the Imperial generals. The price they pay in terms of mental power will continue to increase as the number of wars increases. In this deadlocked situation, the emergence of this paper on superbody design instantly reversed the situation. After this, the Empire's top Psykers will no longer need to be restricted by superbodies and will be able to play their due role even more. The Empire can fully rely on the top combat power of Psykers to do many things that were previously impossible when they were restricted by superbodies. There is one more important thing. That is, with the superbody problem solved, the long-dormant Zerg fleet can finally go to the front line. The Insect Queen's language skills have not yet been taught well by Chen Ming, and it cannot communicate with humans other than Chen Ming. Therefore, the Zerg cannot join forces with the Empire and can only play a logistical role in the war between the Empire and the Machine Tribe, producing more neurons for the Empire. The Zerg fleet cannot mix with the Imperial fleet and can only act on its own. But when the threat of superbodies was still there before, the Zerg's own actions were to defeat the superbodies of the mechanical race in vain, without any means of countermeasures. Things are completely different now. The biggest shackle limiting the Zerg fleet has been removed. The situation in the war between the Empire and the Machine Tribe will change from the moment the Machine Tribe's second superbody is destroyed. Time flies. A few days after the second supership was destroyed, the Machine Tribe did not simply give up on using superbodies as their top combat power to confront the Empire Psykers. They are still continuing to use their superbodies to do what they were doing before. Then, the third supership of the mechanical race was destroyed. There are currently a total of 6 superbodies, one of which was destroyed by Imperial Psychers during the initial invasion. Now that they have destroyed 2 superbodies again, they have finally realized that the Empire really has the ability to deal with superbodies, and they can no longer threaten the Empire from this aspect. And for the Empire, in the case where the superbody has caused many heavy casualties to the Empire's frontline fleet before, the news that the superbody was destroyed and 2 ships were destroyed undoubtedly brought unprecedented excitement to the front line. The front line has been stabilized by the rapid expansion of technology, and the arrival of this good news has allowed the front line's combat effectiveness to increase. The Empire can no longer be regarded as being choked by the mechanical clan. It can barely breathe through the blockade of the mechanical clan. In the entire Empire, the one who was most affected by this and felt it most clearly was Baikuan on the front line. In the headquarters building in the direction of the Gallo Star territory, he is holding regular tactical meetings. He looked in a very poor mental state in the main seat of the conference room. It was obvious that he had been through frequent and many battles. The mental state of several other generals at the conference table was obviously not good, but not as serious as Baikuan. At present, Baikuan is basically relying on drugs to maintain his energy. If it weren't for him and the psychers specially equipped by the Legion to monitor and maintain his mental state, he might have collapsed long ago. Baikuan didn't seem to care about this. A star map of the direction where he was stationed was projected on the conference table in front of him. The above clearly shows the situation between the Empire and the machine race. We need to link up with the fleets in several neighboring star regions to try to counterattack the machine race. Here is the key. Baikuan moved his hand and marked a route on the star map that passed through the weakest point of the machine clan's front line of defense and hit their rear, which was originally the outer ring of the Empire. He pointed to the end of the line and said, "Although we have solved the mechanical superbody, the problem we have to face is still there. That means that the machine race has indeed taken over our territory. They are active in these places and use our resources to transfuse blood for them. Although those are border galaxies, and the machine race has to find ways to develop them if they want to use resources, it will not be a problem in the long run. So we have to find ways to curb this. This is a plan that needs to be carried out simultaneously on the front line and behind enemy lines. We need to put pressure on the machine race on the front line, and we also need someone to lurk behind enemy lines and destroy their industrial base. Let's discuss the issue behind enemy lines first. Lu Bai arrived. Lu Bai, who was sitting in the middle of the conference room, stood up immediately. Baikuan understood again and started to enlarge the star map, showing the end of the line he had just marked, and some new marks appeared on it. This is the news sent back by the fleet that penetrated the past. There is an important colony of the mechanical race and their colossus. We have lost about 500 people in total for the news about this galaxy and this colossus. The value of this news is very important. A trace of regret flashed in Lu Bai's eyes, and he said, "It's a pity that that technology could not be implemented earlier. It won't be possible to implement it earlier. Only at this time can this technology be implemented nationwide so quickly. Now is not the time to miss." Baikuan began to explain in detail the task to be assigned to Lu Bai. It is investigated that this industrial colony of the Machine Tribe is producing core components for the manufacture of the Machine Tribe's ships. As long as this industrial colony is destroyed, their ship production will stagnate. And there should be a personality core belonging to the mechanical race in this industrial colony. If we can bring it back, then we can use Chen Ming's artificial intelligence, which he calls the Machine Queen, to read the data inside and figure out the military defense of the Machine Clan. There are only 3 purposes of the mission: the colony, the core of personality, and the colossus. As long as one of the 3 tasks can be completed, it will be considered a success. The front line will continue to exert pressure, and the rest will be left to you. Lu Bai agreed simply, "I understand." "Well, it's up to you to get the resources. It's still the same as last time. Only you and the team members you personally selected will participate in this task. I hope this time you can complete the mission with the loss of only 1 team member like last time." Lu Bai was slightly silent. Baikuan handed Lu Bai a document that had been signed with his name but had not yet been filled in. Lu Bai took the document and saluted Baikuan. There will be no loss this time.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.